Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening. Welcome, one and all, to the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here live with my ever-loving and oh-so-supportive grandfather, Russell Dobular, live from New York City. What's up, Russell?
Hello. Listen, man, I don't know. I appreciate Extra Bowl filling in. I don't know what he did in that bathroom. I am going to need an exorcist and some sage, maybe a Yoruba priest.
Yeah.
Come on, man. I said he could host the show here.
I see you got the Indian thing up on the shelf there. The same thing that Reef had. What are those called again?
You see which thing?
It's over your right or left shoulder, depending on the mirroring. You know, the bowl with the little wood thing. What are they called?
Oh, the Tibetan singing bowl.
The singing bowl. The singing bowl.
Oh, you know what?
He's gonna charm us tonight.
It's kind of cool. I'm learning how to do this. It's a little. You gotta kind of hold it on the flat of your palm.
There you go. Beautiful. Oh, there you go. That sounds great.
I actually bought that. I actually bought that at the site of the Buddha's first sermon.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, that's great. See, because you were talking about how now that you have all these trinkets that you brought back from India, you might actually have to fix the shelf if you can't fit all of them on there.
No, it worked out. It's okay. I was thinking about fixing the shelf anyway, but yeah, man, I'm not spending $140 to get that one bracket because I'm going to have to buy the whole set again.
Especially since it's our lovable trademark. It's kind of good
given that everyone likes it better, except for the carpenters in the audience, and fuck them.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, so we have some business to take care of tonight. Obviously,
Cyrus making it rain.
Cyrus is making it rain already. Oh, Cyrus, thank you so much, Cyrus. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Cyrus. Namaste.
That's very kind of you. Namaste, Cyrus. And thank you to Cortex. Peace, let's get it poppin'. Thank you, Cortex, for the $5. And Tusker. Hi, Russell. Glad you're finally back. Yes, we're all glad Russell is back. Set looks good. Everything's looking good, feeling right for this. And this is a good welcome back show because this is a show where we obviously needed the two of us here. And we have the two of us here. And we're going to have a good old time tonight.
New mug.
So new mug. Oh, yeah, look at that. From Goa, right? It says Goa on there.
Yep,
beautiful.
From Goa.
Excellent. Yep, just some good old family fun between a boy and his grandpa. A lot of you guys don't know what we're talking about yet, but you will find out.
You will soon. You will soon.
You will get that reference sooner or later. But we do have some topics that we want to cover this evening. We have a fun show planned, so we're glad you could all make it in here tonight. What's that? What'd you see?
This is going to go over your head, you Amish prick, but it was the Warriors. They got Cyrus. That's like the inciting incident of the classic exploitation film, The Warriors.
The Warriors movie, yeah.
It was the Warriors! The Warriors did it!
They got him. We have some headlines to do. We have some segments to do, obviously. We are going to try our damnedest to do a proper segment on Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger's testimony for Congress tomorrow. It was about 3 hours worth of footage that we're going to have to kind of parse through and pick what we want to feature. I'm kind of kicking myself that we didn't plan a live stream this morning and just do live commentary along with it. Although I gotta say, it might be for the best that we didn't, because I would have had a heart attack watching that. Like, my blood was boiling at so many points I had to stop. Like, where'd they find what's her name, Plaskip? Where'd they find a miserable lying lowlife like that? I never heard of her. No, she's the one who's heading it up. Jesus Christ!
I watched it gavel to gavel because it was not all day. It was 3 hours, and I was interested enough. Yes, it was fucking infuriating. And it was one of those just great examples of how we're living in the upside down. Because here you have the Democrats who are, supposed to be the left party. And yes, we know. But ostensibly, they're supposed to be the left party. Furiously scrambling to defend the intelligence services and to defend the clear abuse of power that the Twitter files have exposed. And you have the Republicans are like the fucking Chicago 7.
Right.
I was ready for fucking Jordan to put on an American flag bandana.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like, these guys are arguing and they keep making the point. Yes, Taibbi worked for Rolling Stone, that great right-wing magazine, and talking about left-wing people that they think should be able to speak and should have their rights. And look, I understand. I mean, that's very easy for them to say when they don't really have the power to do this in reverse. Okay, I'm not saying the Republicans are good faith actors. I think some of them are, though. I think some of them really do have that libertarian streak and are legitimately horrified by the abuse of power that this represents, because some of them seem to remember something that the Democrats maybe have forgotten, perhaps because the culture wars in regards to how it's played out in the media has been against them for so long that they're a little more conscious of how these things can be used against you. And the Democrats, it seems like they just can't imagine that the precedents they're setting are going to be turned against them. And when we get into the Chris Hedges article, that's a point that he makes there. Like, do you think you're always going to be in power? Or do you think at the very least, even if you're out of political power, you'll always have the cultural power? Because I keep bringing this up, man. The Reagan Revolution, you would be amazed how quickly the whole culture went from sex, drugs, and rock and roll to brown suits. That was like 3 years, man. It was complete. Within 3 years, the whole idea of everything that happened in the 60s and 70s was being laughed at.
Look,
bell bottoms, hippies, drugs, peace marches. Nobody leading the laughter more loudly than the boomers themselves, who were at that point mostly 30-somethings. Okay, you have no idea how quickly the culture can shift. And
yeah, I mean, look, it's partly that the Republicans, some of them have this libertarian bent to them. I think that's certainly part of it. I think a bigger part of it, though, is the fact that the Republicans, love them or hate them, actually have an ideology. They actually have political beliefs. Right. And with political beliefs comes a certain confidence that you can win political arguments. Democrats have no political beliefs. They are simply a middle management party. Right? That is meant to keep things the way they are. They don't have actual values or opinions about anything. And so the only way to enforce a status quo based on no underlying political sentiment is to do so by force, bullying, censorship, silencing people. Right. Because you don't actually have confidence that you can win an argument on the merits, because they have no argument. They have no thoughts. They have no opinions. They have no values, no beliefs.
Well, and you could see that in every tactic they used. It was everything that is most repulsive about modern day liberals. It's Russia, was trying to connect it to Russia. The election interference, Russia, questioning their credibility as journalists. Of course, taking the stenographers for Elon Musk handpicked journalists. Taibbi right at the beginning pushed back on, I think it was Debbie Wasserman Schmuck, who really took the line of like supposed journalists or so-called journalists, and he came back.
No. There was the
was it the
Wasserman Schultz played the Rogan clip and tried to checkmate him with that.
Right,
it was the what's her name, Plaskett?
I
never heard. I don't know where they dug this woman out of.
I never even heard of her.
She's the one who started out in her opening statement with the so-called journalist, and he, in his opening statement, said, "By the way, I'm not a so-called journalist.
Yes.
I've written 10 books. I've worked for magazines. I'm an editor of a magazine now." Yeah, exactly.
I'm an award-winning, journalist, and it's just every time they came to the Democrats, they just tried to smear the messengers. They tried to attack and that's what they do. That's what they do on every level. And it was whenever you challenge the Democrats, it's all. This is why they embrace identity politics so hard. What would they do without it? If they couldn't call you an ist, a phobe, or red bait you, what would they have? What could they say without those things? Right? Because as you say, they don't have an ideology. So they can't attack you on ethical grounds, not real ones, not real policy grounds. So they have to be able to smear your character. And when you watch this trial, it was really a masterclass in what the Democrats are about. It's all about putting you in a box and putting you in a category in order to avoid a discussion of the actual issues that you're actually raising.
Exactly. Very, very well said. All right, we got some headlines. We got some segments to get to. We're going to knock out a couple quick super chats. First from Christian Drake. Thank you for the $5, my friend. Can we do a new gimmick where every super chat $5 and higher makes the Bulls sing? I'm afraid that might disincentivize people to donate more than $5, unfortunately.
I think that's going to backfire on us.
That might backfire on us. We can do it maybe, say, for $50 or higher. This way we'll do it once or twice a show, and we'll get our little pay, and then that'll be that. We don't have to ring it all night. But I like the idea, but I think the threshold is probably a bit low. I think your numbers are a bit off, but I like the idea.
Maybe a Sunday DueDissidence meditation service.
Yeah, maybe instead of a countdown once a month, we'll do a 10-minute meditation.
Yeah, okay.
Instead of the reggae music,
yeah. I look, I'm much better at that thing than I was when I bought it from the orphan.
Imagine people tuning in for the first time to the show and just for 10 minutes. We're just.
I mean, I would definitely make us stand out from the pack. I don't think there's anyone else in this space doing meditation services.
Exactly. Chris Bishop, thanks for the $2, my friend. Democracy was brutally attacked in Congress today.
Yeah.
It seemed that way to me.
I'm just like, what world are we living in? The fucking Republicans. I'm like, go.
Of course, yeah.
Get them. Like, what?
Yeah.
What is going on here? The Republicans are making all of the classic ACLU arguments about speech. And the Democrats sound exactly like people from like the Nixon White House in 1972 would have sounded going after the Washington Post.
Yeah, just absurd. Absolutely absurd. I was with my kids all day today. We went to the farm. So we were playing with we were feeding some chickens and some goats and some stuff. So I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did watch a good chunk of it. And from what I saw, absolutely horrible. I'll watch the end of it after we're done tonight. Oh, Russell, get the bowl out. We got a good donation from Joyce here.
Is that for the bowl?
It must be for the bowl. It's not a coincidence. We just said 50 and above gets a ring. She gave us 50. So
I guess I'm going to have to keep this on the desk now.
Yeah, don't keep the customers waiting. Here you are. Joyce, thank you so much. There you have it.
Oh, I'm getting really good at this.
Really good. Look at that.
The first time
that was a good $50 ring right there. We gave her.
I couldn't even do it when I first bought it.
Oh, that sounds great.
The kid showed me how to do it. It was like these 10-year-old boys who were selling these.
Oh yeah.
Listen, man, it raises a lot of moral conundrums when you're traveling in a country where an amount of money that you would not accept a job if that's what it paid you an hour will buy you that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what do? Do you pay more? And it's being sold by a couple of kids.
Right.
You know, it's very at the site where the Buddha preached his first sermon. It's just like, what would the Buddha have to say about this economic arrangement? You know, me coming here with my Western dollars and buying up religious artifacts. I mean, the difference between me and the British Museum, though, is I paid for this stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Big difference.
I didn't just go to India and take it home.
No, take it. Right.
Yeah.
That clapper seems unhealthy. See a doctor. What clapper? What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. Red Z always with the cryptic super chats, but at least we caught this one this time. Last time I think we lost your super chat to shuffle. So thank you, Red Z. Appreciate you. All right, everybody, let's get to some headlines here. This is a story that broke about a week ago, and I was hoping some more video would surface from it, but it doesn't look like any did. So we're going to have to go with what a lot of the channels have been using, which is just a news report out of East Palestine, Ohio. Norfolk Southern finally showed up for a community meeting, and the residents got to voice their concerns. So let's play. This is a brief video here. Let's see what we got going on in East Palestine.
Palestine, Ohio.
We're all scared.
Neighbors not holding back, confronting Norfolk Southern representatives over the toxic train derailment that upended their lives.
My grandchildren, my children, wow. It's not safe here, sir. We're sick.
If this happened in your Richard neighborhood, would it have been cleaned up a lot faster?
People that have symptoms, they shouldn't be dismissed.
Officials with the rail company and the EPA in the hot seat. The mayor at times playing referee.
I just want to know why people are getting sick. So do I.
The EPA announcing it will now require Norfolk Southern to test for dioxins.
Oh, now they'll require Norfolk Southern to test for dioxins. Now. The accident was over a month ago. The EPA is now forcing Norfolk Southern to pay for lodging and housing for some people who are getting sick in their homes. Now, a month later, a month after they said it was safe to go back home, right? After like 24 hours, they said, okay, seems like it's all good, come back. Now they are requiring testing. Now they're looking to give people lodging after it is most likely too late to avoid major health issues from this.
Well, and then you'll see all the talking heads wringing their hands when polling shows that 21% of the public have faith in government institutions.
Right, that was Donald Trump's fault, not this.
That was Donald Trump's fault, right? Right, like it's
what you're seeing on the screen now. That has nothing to do with it.
In the 60s, it was something like 80%, 90%, right? Like an insane number,
right.
And
the institutions that tell you that air that we're looking at right now, totally
safe. Totally safe. Go back. Go back to your homes.
Go back home.
Go back to your homes.
Yeah.
These are the same. These are the same people who still have not given Flint clean drinking water.
Exactly. Let's play a little bit more.
Cancer-causing chemicals residents fear could be present after the controlled burn of those derailed cars.
Some people don't have nowhere to go. Some don't have the means. I have my family of 5 living in a 1-bedroom right now at my brother's house, all of us on a blow-up mattress, because I'm not stupid.
Despite officials...
No, you're not. And listen, I don't want you to despair, my friend. Help is on the way. Did you hear Marianne Williamson is running for president? She
is, and she's going. This is her top priority, she said.
Yeah, exactly.
Declaring the water and air safe, neighbors say they're still experiencing headaches, stomach issues, and coughing.
This is not something we asked for, sir. I'm begging you, by the grace of God, please get our people out of here. Yes.
Amid calls for new rail safety measures, Norfolk Southern has now agreed to a request from Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
Look at this. Look at this fucking country of ours. Can you believe this fucking shit? Are you kidding me? This is a joke. Look at this. Look here. We're gonna get a close up there. This is this.
Not since Dukakis put on that tank helmet as a public official made such an unfortunate choice in headgear.
You don't wear a white collared shirt when you know you're gonna have to be putting the vest and the hard hat on. Wear a t-shirt.
He's playing by the McKinsey rules.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. This wasn't Friday. This wasn't a Friday.
Never let him
forget
what color your collar is.
Exactly.
Called Close Call Reporting System, which allows employees to confidentially report safety concerns, something the company says it's previously done on its own. As for the investigation, officials are now looking into whether some of the protective aluminum covers on the rail cars melted, contributing to the disaster.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's something you would want to look into, I think, a month later. For sure. That's something that, it's funny that, that's not something you'd think of right away. Maybe in this ball of fire that's leaking a cloud of smoke a few miles wide into the sky, maybe the metal melted. Molten metal, that's dangerous to breathe. Yeah, that's something that you would think I'm surprised it only took a month for them to think of that as a possibility. Just extraordinary.
Okay, I know you don't like me to get into these subjects, so I'll try to rhyme as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
There was already a severe downward trajectory, rightly so, in public faith in institutions. And I've made this point on the show before that Donald Trump was not an anti-democratic result. It was an entirely predictable and very democratic result of a population that's lost faith in its institutions for good reason, not because they just went crazy one day. It took if anything surprising, it's that it took so long to get a figure like Donald Trump after decades and decades and decades. It's amazing that as late as Obama, they were still willing to give you a chance after such a long period of time like that. COVID, schmovid, whatever you want to call it, that was the final nail in the coffin. If you look at how that was handled, it was all of the worst instincts that the government and our institutions and our academic actors and our media complex have developed, particularly during the Trump years, of criminalizing and otherizing any kind of dissent, shutting down public debate, having the assumption that people are not smart enough to, and that was something that came up in the hearings today. The assumption that people are not smart enough to be entrusted with the truth. That was something Taibbi talked about that comes up in the Twitter files.
Of course.
And the fact, and this was a point they made, and I think we really saw this play out during the crisis.
You don't have to keep being cryptic about it. I think January 6th is a perfect example of this as well, and that's on the docket this evening. Same kind of thing, where you are not allowed to question the narrative. Not allowed to.
Right. And the point that I think it was actually Schellenberger who made this point, that if we're not able to have these public debates, if we're just going to say whatever the consensus at the moment is the consensus, we're just going to be frozen in place as a society. Because he made the point, you're wrong a lot before you become right. So you can't just assume that the establishment consensus at any given moment is necessarily correct. And now we can see why. We can see the wisdom of open debate, because look how much of the consensus was wrong and how much of what was ruled out of bounds during the crisis that shall not be named turned out to be correct.
Well, that's an interesting point. It's a very interesting point because it is a compounding crisis of not only experts being proven wrong, which, like you said, in real time, there is fog of war. Experts are wrong. It's not necessarily an indictment of the experts that they get things wrong before they get things right. That is the process. That is most processes. Most human effort results in failure, right? But there's that combined with the insistence that they are always right on the first time.
Yeah,
that's what creates this real crisis of confidence.
And also the fact that our institutions are so corrupt that you can't trust their motives. Because when you have Pfizer that has its fingers so deep into the government, basically promoting the idea, oh yeah, well, you might need these shots forever. hey, every 6 months, more shots, right? You can't
Norfolk
trust,
Southern.
right?
Norfolk Southern.
Right.
Look at that.
So you can't trust that even their initial statements or any subsequent statements are unbiased, uncorrupted, and truly in the public interest. And when you look back at the way that they shaped the narrative, right, this was something that came up today in the hearings as well. That Pfizer reached out to Twitter to suppress discussion of natural immunity being something that would make you really not need the vaccine. And now we know, yes, natural immunity is superior to the vaccine. All of these things you were not allowed to say. And probably a lot of our viewers can relate to this sentiment. You probably, if you're on the left, you probably know a lot of liberals just over the course of your life. You've just known a lot of people who wound up really never being radicalized, and, you know, they're liberals. And God, is just terrifying because during the crisis, they all became good Germans, man. I mean, you know, just whatever they were told, they not only went with it, God help you if you said anything to the contrary. Right. I mean, you know, you were just ruled completely out of bounds. It was very risky to go out during it. I mean, you could be pulled off social media. I basically stayed off the subject. I once mentioned, hey, what they're doing in Sweden, that's kind of interesting. Focusing on the vulnerable and letting society go about its business. Wow. What I got from that. I just never brought it up again. You know, you got to pick your battles. I know a good witch hunt when I see one, and that was a witch hunt. And when you get on the wrong side of a witch hunt, there's no reasoning with that crowd.
All right, let's do a few more super chats, and I want to do a patron scroll actually because we have some new patrons. Ellen, thanks for the $2. You bought it from the orphan, worth $2. LOL. Guess she appreciated that joke. Thank you, Ellen. Abiding71, thanks for the 99 cents. Thank you, sir. Tusker, thank you for the $5. Copernicus was bigger. D-flat for him. All right. Is that everything? Were you all caught up on that? All right. Perfect. All right. We're going to do a little healthcare story here in just 1 second. But before we do, I do want to shout out to our patrons and do a like check. Please like this stream and subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed already. We have some new patrons that we want to shout out this week. We have Joyce, who gave us that generous super chat. She signed up at Patreon this week. We have David W. We have PW, and then we have Alan or Alon. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. It was spelled ALON. Alan C. Thank you guys all so much for signing up. I think I mentioned all of the new ones. You are on the scroll there either way. I am pretty sure I did not miss anybody. Here, let me just check the phone right here. Make sure I don't miss a verbal shout out. Pretty sure I got everybody, but we did have some. Oh, no, of course, I did miss somebody, actually. Kinky signed up this week. So thank you, Kinky. She is in the chat pretty often. So thank you so much to everybody who signed up this week. It is very, very helpful. Like I said, the more donations, the more Patreon supporters, the more Substack subscribers we get, the more often we can do these streams, the more content we can create, and the more effort we can put into them. Simple as that. So thank you, everybody who has signed up. And yes, please like this stream and subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. We have a pretty good crowd in here this evening, and we have plenty more time to go before we hang it up tonight. Lots more to cover. So thank you very much.
Miles before we sleep.
Joss K, Alan C, yeah, PW, David W.
Of course,
Joyce
Kinky. G. We are talking to her about leading our foray into political pornography, where we're gonna have people dress up as prominent figures in left media, and play out different scenarios.
Just struck me. I don't think I put Kinky's name on the scroll. Stay there. I just added you. We'll play it once more at the end. Thank you, Kinky. I apologize about that. All righty, everybody. So now our second story of the evening is a healthcare related story. sort of a true crime story, I suppose, but also a health-related story. And I decided to pull a headline from European news sources here. Is it safe to travel to Mexico? 2 Americans murdered on medical tourism trip.
I'm sorry, it's not funny, but that headline.
This is how they talk about it.
That headline was just insane.
Well, this is how they frame it in insane parts
Is
of
it
the world.
safe to travel to Mexico?
Yeah.
Awful.
This week, somber news came of the deaths of 2 Americans who had traveled with 2 other companions to Mexico in search of health care. The 4 were headed to Matamoros, once a popular spring break destination, but now overrun with violence from cartel infighting. They were caught in a deadly shootout after entering the city and kidnapped by armed men. 2 died. The other 2 were rescued, but they were there for elective tummy tuck surgery, there for cheap medical care. And, you know, this reminds me, my father's friend, he lived in Southern California. He was a penny pincher. You know, he was a teacher. He like worked for a living. You know, he wasn't destitute, but he was just, you know, extremely frugal. He went to Tijuana to get dental work done. And he got to the dentist's office, and the dentist didn't speak any English. He just came in. He started talking to the dentist. The dentist literally would say, yeah, teeth, yeah, teeth. And then he's trying to explain what to do. He's like, okay, well, this way. Yeah, no, teeth. I got it. You know, teeth. Puts him under. He wakes up looking like a fucking horse. I mean, he had these huge fake teeth put in because the guy had no teeth. He needed like dentures and shit like that. Right. And so, it's a thing. Medical tourism. That's a thing. Not just to Mexico, to Canada. You hear people in Michigan going to Canada for drugs all the time. Upstate New York. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's how it goes. Quite the story.
Yeah, it's really tragic that you would go to a town that the State Department advised you shouldn't go to because of its dangers for a tummy tuck. You know, this isn't even like you went there because you needed vital medical treatment.
No, this was elective, yeah.
This was elective. I mean, it's horrible that this happened to these people. But it's also crazy that you would take that kind of risk for that kind of a procedure. But there are people who go down there for much more serious
vital
procedures because they can't afford it in the United States. And that's a story that really doesn't get covered a lot.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, you don't see that too much on the corporate news, on the, mainstream media channels. Not a coincidence that, every time they cut to commercial, there's a commercial for a different pill that a different pharmaceutical company is trying to sell you.
Which if you talk to
a lot of it right there.
Yeah, they don't allow that anywhere else that I'm aware of. When people from other countries see these commercials, I was married to an Australian, and that was one of the things she couldn't wrap her head around. She could not wrap her head around our drug ads and our gun laws. Those two things from an outside perspective is just like, what? I mean, those commercials are absurd, even if you're from this culture. This drug may cause depression, suicide, bleeding, diarrhea. Ask your doctor if it's right for you. It's just so deranged. And of course, actually, honestly, it was part of what radicalized me even before the Bernie campaign, because being married to an Australian was kind of like if a Martian came to Earth and started asking you very obvious questions that you just don't think about because it's hard to see how dirty the water is when you're in the pool. She would ask me very basic questions like, hang on, so 90% of people want stricter gun laws, so why don't you have them? And it's the most obvious thing in the world, but once you start trying to answer that question, it opens up a lot of scenery.
Right, exactly. All right, headline number 3. This is a quick one because according to the New York Times, there's not much more to see than what is on the headline itself. But of course, this was one of the major headlines of the week. Load. Thank you. Intelligence suggests pro-Ukrainian group sabotaged pipelines, U.S. officials say. New intelligence reporting amounts to the first significant known lead about who was responsible for the attack on the Nord Stream pipelines that carried natural gas from Russia to Europe. As if Joe Biden's saying into a microphone, if Russia invades, we have a way of getting rid of the pipeline. That seems like a lead to me. I don't know. I didn't go to journalism school, but that seems like a bit of a lead, I would have to imagine. Just going to read the first couple paragraphs. New intelligence reviewed by U.S. officials suggests a pro-Ukrainian group carried out the attack on the Nord Stream pipelines last year, a step towards determining responsibility for an act of sabotage.
Nazis.
Yeah, that has confounded investigators on both sides of the Atlantic for months. Now, I love this. U.S. officials said that they had no evidence President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine or his top lieutenants were involved in the operation, or that the perpetrators were acting at the direction of any Ukrainian government officials. So
no one who matters is responsible.
Right. No one who matters is responsible is what that means. It wasn't the Americans. It was a pro-Ukrainian group, but neither the Americans nor the Ukrainians had any knowledge of this having happened or this being planned. That's literally what they want you to believe. That it just happened to be this rogue group of people who thought that they could cuck Germany by making them more reliant on NATO and the West by blowing up the pipeline, but they didn't want Ukraine to know. I mean, you talk about the mafia.
Yuri, you have grandfather's ancient wetsuit with helmet?
We
can help Ukraine.
This is literally how the mafia works. They will do a hit on somebody, and they will keep certain people out of the loop so that they don't know about it, so that it never comes back to them. Like, that is literally how it's done. Right? That's what they want you to think, how this happened. Yeah.
It's you look at something like this, and you say, really, we are better than a totalitarian country? I mean, yeah, sure, in some ways. I don't want to overstate this, but this is what goes on in totalitarian countries, where you have these intelligence services put out fake information and the media doesn't question it. The media should have burst out laughing when they were told this, and instead they're writing this sober article where they're dutifully taking this absolutely ridiculous premise seriously. Like, not a dose of skepticism. Like, of course you should report that they're saying this. It should be very skeptical. They did not offer any explanation on how a rogue group could possibly have executed such a complicated operation. Right? Say a few things to indicate this is ridiculous.
I like that theory. I like Tusker's theory. It was the squad. That makes sense.
Actually, my theory is it's well known that the Nazis did a lot of medical experiments in Ukraine, and they may have created a race of amphibious fish people with Nazi Ukrainian sympathies who might have done this. But otherwise, from what I know,
mermaids.
From what I know, there were doubts about whether this was possible to do by Navy SEALs, that this would be a very complex operation to get that deep and blow up that pipeline. So the idea that, what rogue elements are you talking about? The Azov guys? Like, who are you talking about that was able to execute this operation without anybody seeing them do it? Right? There's a war zone, no surveillance, nobody saw these guys blow up a fucking pipeline. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's like something you would expect to come out of the press in China.
Right. Exactly. No, just amazing. Just amazing. And it's just amazing how this story has just kind of disappeared. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, one of the Chapo guys made this point, actually. It was a great point. He said, if Russia actually did it, the media would be talking about this nonstop since it happened, because they would want to use this to drum up anti-Russian sentiment. The fact that the media dropped this a few days after it happened, that ought to tell you right there we did it. It just doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? All right, we're going to go into our first segment of the evening here, which is Matt Taibbi and Briahna Joy Gray. Speaking of Australians, I noticed Taya was enjoying a good laugh at your stories about your Australian marriage. She is waiting in the studio here. It's a very clever heading that you have here. Very clever label. She's a patron supporter, and she called in to join us for this segment, and she does a lot of writing in Australia about this topic. So we're going to welcome once again to the show Taya Smith, or as we should say, so-called Taya.
Isn't that the thing now?
Yeah, so-called Taya. Exactly. Thank you so much.
Hang on, am I muted? No, I'm good. Okay.
No, you're good. You're coming in loud and clear.
Okay.
All right, let's get this started here. Matt Taibbi appeared on Briahna Joy Gray's Bad Faith podcast, where she pressed him on his Twitter files reporting, arguing that his coverage overrepresents Twitter's anti-conservative bias and underemphasizes their censorship of the left. So they went on for about a half hour. To be honest, this was a tough sit. It was kind of frustrating to watch. I didn't think it was a particularly great interview. But this part of it is relevant not only as it pertains to the Twitter files, but as it pertains to the ongoing sort of intra-left feud to Marianne, or not to Marianne, right? So this sort of has its tentacles in both of those topics. But first, let's just play this. This was sort of a highlight, if you will, that's been making the rounds.
Conservative sites talking about this. Yeah, sometimes it's like the FBI is doing this and that and the other, but oftentimes there's this far-ranging anti-right-wing bias, which I don't have a problem with, except for I think that the story is there is an establishment bias against more fringe populist parts that include, yes, the right, but also the left. It's a nuanced point, but I think that it's important.
But the reason you're seeing more of this against the right than the left is that the left is toothless and no threat to anybody, whereas the right is actually scary to the national security establishment because of Brexit, because of Trump, and because of other things.
If that's true, Matt, why is it that 85% of all FBI action, FBI activity, has been historically focused on the left? I'm not talking about the right now contemporary. Yes.
Okay, well, I'm not looking at 1970. I'm looking at 2000.
That's my favorite line.
Well, what a ridiculous point. It's like, yes, 50 years ago when the left had balls, they were a threat to power. Now the left is still triggered 2 years later at a bunch of yahoos smearing shit on the walls of the Capitol building. Like, are you kidding me? And she seems really hurt by that. And, Briahna has put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the Bernie campaign, so I understand how it's hard for her to accept that it was, for the most part, a massive failure. I understand how it's difficult to accept that, especially when you put all the time in and the effort in, and, she is a lawyer, which shows a little bit of class perspective that informs some of her other sort of approaches to these questions about Marianne Williamson and this and that. But okay, whatever. I don't want to pick on her for that yet, at least. The fact of the matter is, she put a lot into it. It hurts to lose. It hurts to face the reality that it failed. But she seems to get very difficult with people who will not entertain her delusions that it was more successful than it was. Like, she seems to want Matt Taibbi to sort of humor her when she pretends that the left is more powerful than it is and more relevant than it is and more threatening than it is. That's what this kind of strikes me as so far.
Well, and Taibbi has brought up, and he did bring up in the hearings today, that they did talk about how Truth Out and Consortium News were targeted.
Of course they were, yeah.
He did talk about that in the Twitter files. What he keeps saying, and it came up today, again, I can't remember which one. One of them took this tack. Why aren't you talking about what the Trump White House might have, that kind of thing. And his answer was reasonably, we've gone through thousands of emails, and my search was on the FBI. My search was not on right wing specifically. It was on the FBI. And when we went through these thousands of emails, the FBI just was not talking about the left. And it's very unlikely that these are selective because of the speed with which Twitter was able to give us these emails within 24 hours after the request. It would just be impossible for them to have gone through and selectively edited tens of thousands. And if you've read the Twitter files, yeah, man, the point he's making is, if you tried to do that, if you tried to selectively take it out, it would come up somewhere in this volume of emails. Somebody would be talking about something that's not there. And you would be saying, well, why isn't that there? What does this person indicate? Right. I mean, this is clear enough and it's reasonable enough, unless you're just looking to make exception, to have exception with the Twitter files. Like that sounds like a reasonable explanation to me. And everyone keeps going after him about the sourcing. And again, he reasonably says that that's always an issue with a whistleblower story. They always have motives. Right. And that, that's something that you have to weigh out. And he said today in his testimony, the real question is it true? That's what it comes down to. Is it true?
Of course. Because if it's true, there's a story. If it's not, there isn't. Taya, do you have anything to add before we play more of that?
Well, there's two parts here, which is I think that she's missing the story. I think that a lot of it is that through my interactions, I think, with Taibbi, because I think that when he
quote tweeted you the other day. That was pretty cool. He answered the question and interacted directly with you.
Yeah, but my criticism was that, this is very, I try to stay out of American domestic politics as much as possible and talk about sort of
you fucking
global,
better.
In case you ever want a green card.
The global impact on, you only comment when asked, right? But the global
actually, when me and my Aussie wife were running around campaigning for Sanders, her immigration lawyer was losing her mind. She was like, stop that right now.
I know where see, the thing is, you don't understand that I'm a foreign actor in these things.
Right,
when you understand how these things get very serious very quickly, when in the American public's mind, you guys being targeted, that's something where you have rights. Globally, that's something where, you end up in a position like, say, Julian Assange, or, it's a lot, the stakes are a lot higher. So that's why I think that one of my critiques of Matt's work was that, which was there's a very American focus. Are you going to, expand access to sort of, people like me who've been on this for years? I'm not a journalist, but I'm a digital person who went, this is not okay. But the story that Brie's missing is the absolute betrayal and lie that tech generally did to users. That this was a complete bait and switch around data. So that's like the real story, and how this has been abused, like the abuse of power, the betrayal of trust, the promises. Like one of the things I say is they just asked us to put stuff in a box and share with our friends, and how are you feeling? And all of the big betrayal here is this that we are now securitized by the United States government for a good faith thing that, we thought we were part of a revolution. Tech was supposed to be liberating and free. And, we were supposed to be able to have that expression and exchange of ideas. I think because I've been doing this since I was 14 years old, so nearly 30 years, right, on the internet, participating in this thing. And this was the lie. The switch that happened in 2013, 2014 was users, we gave them our data, and this, the Obama campaign, this is data-driven political campaigning, but that nudging the needle. No one said, this is unethical, this isn't okay, this is something I've been saying for years. I go, this is a line that you shouldn't be crossing with data. And so this is the thing where it's like, yes, there is the abuse of power, and yes, there is, the FBI, CIA, all those things. But personally, I take exception to being considered a foreign influence for merely participating in discussions on a platform that I, helped build, good faith, all those sorts of things. So that's where I think Brie's missing the sort of bigger picture and bigger story there, because she's very focused on sort of that narrow tactical part of the Bernie campaign. That's one slice of a much bigger story.
No, that's a great point.
He gave that reassurance that he said he's built, and now I see where they're going. They're building a story. This is like a very complex story, but what we're doing, we were talking about, you were saying about that self-censorship earlier, Russell, with where you didn't speak about COVID, you didn't speak about these things.
Yeah.
I consider myself an industry whistleblower of sorts, right? Where I quit. I went, I can't do this. I have to fight this. This was 5 years ago. I saw all this. I could name all of these actors. I knew this was going on. Renee DiResta, it has been mentioned in these things. I've been on top of this. I didn't talk about it because I knew that this was picking a fist fight with the sun.
Yeah.
And when you do
of course,
say it, you need to be resourced. You need to be able to feed yourself. All of these things. I just never could. So I just went, I talked around it. You talk around it and because you look like a kook. That's the power imbalance that we've got. You can't do it.
Well, exactly.
So that's where Brie.
Well, that's exactly it. It's a power imbalance. That's exactly the point. Is that you are one of, in Facebook's case, a couple billion users, Twitter's, a few 100 million users, and they hold all the cards. They put a terms of service sheet in front of your face, and you agree because you have to. Otherwise, you don't get access to the platform. You're not in the game. Right. And it's just a perverse imbalance of power. Absolutely. All right, let's play the rest of this.
But if I can be charitable to Brie.
Sorry. Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
So just from where she's coming from, because I understand sort of where she's coming from, I think her feedback is also valid in the fact that that the stakes for Taibbi are very high. The story is very important. But she was trying to sort of go into sort of witness prep mode, which was to get him on the, because you've seen what happened in the last 24 hours, which was, really push him a little bit more. I think her intentions were lawyery, which was to push him
she's one of a couple million
help.
people who give a shit what happened in the aftermath of Bernie winning the Nevada caucuses. Okay. And I was a staunch Bernie supporter. I was very invested in it at the time. Even I don't care about it that much anymore at this point. And even if I did, that wasn't a fight that played out on Twitter. That played out on MSNBC. And that's part of what we will get to here in a second.
I'm looking at 2015 on.
That's fine, but Matt, we just all saw Bernie wins Nevada, and the next day on MSNBC, it's Bernie's in talks with Putin, and he's gonna cut people's heads off in Central Park.
I'd love to get that story. I would love to get, but is that on Twitter? I don't know. I mean, I've certainly looked for it.
Tell me more about looking for it. I mean, what kind of searches have been done to try to investigate what was going on at Twitter around some of the Bernie bot, Bernie bro narratives in 2016 and 2020?
Let's just say that I've searched for anything involving the government and claims about Russia. And
Bernie?
No, not Bernie specifically, because I haven't done a search on Sanders. I haven't. I've done a search on Assange, but not much turns up. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is like asking the author of a science fiction book why he didn't write a book about vampires, why he didn't write a romance novel, right? I mean, there's just not much to answer there. That's why I said this is just not a particularly well done interview. If I can help Matt out there a bit, I would continue on the point I was making earlier, which is that the corporate media, the traditional media, the cable news and the print newspapers, they were able to tame the left just fine on their own. Right. They didn't need monopolistic tech power to do it because the left are a bunch of cucked pussies who fall in line at the end of the day, no matter how loud they bark, for the most part, obviously present company excluded. But, that's why there wasn't that much material there to be found. And if you are starting out a project where you have to put the big marquee stories first, i.e. the stories that influence the world, like the Hunter Biden laptop story, like the banning of the sitting president, right? Like the Hamilton 68 stuff, then you have to start looking for big fish. And this is, once again, what Briahna refuses to accept. There are no big fish on the left because the left is cucked. Right? So there's nothing there for him to sink his teeth into yet. I'm sure if he does a few hundred volumes, he'll get to it eventually, right? But it's not top priority for good reason.
In an alternate universe where Sanders won that primary, maybe you'd have very different evidence coming up. Maybe the FBI
Oh, I'm sure
would
you
have been worth their while, right? They would
you
have
definitely
directed
would.
it at the left. But what left are you talking about? Sanders bent the knee. A good portion of his movement bent the knee with him. And then the rest of the left just kind of splintered and fragmented into warring factions. Why would they care? The right is a real challenge to institutional power. And we were talking about this a little offline. You know, you look at whenever I look at January 6th, and you're right, this is why they're threatened by the right. The left would never do anything like that. I always think of the lines in Apocalypse Now, where Kurtz tells the story about how they inoculated these Vietnamese children, and the VC came in after them and chopped off every inoculated arm. And he says, at first I wept, I screamed, but then I thought the genius of that. Give us two divisions of such men, and our problems here will be over very quickly. That's what I think when I look at January 6th. I'm like, give us a left that would do something like that, but to better purpose and with better motivations. And wow, man, then you would have a very different Twitter files. Then you would have a Twitter files that would be directed at the left. But
if it was Bernie versus Trump, they may have just shut the whole site down. Be like, fuck it, we're not letting it. We're just not going to allow these conversations to take place. It's not
I think a lot of it is where
Twitter is suspended
until after election. Yeah.
But that's actually not entirely, that is actually a big part of it, which is this war on tech, which is what the promise of tech, these companies of social media was. I think people forget about the historical parts, the very important history around what people were promised, that we were, open source, all those sorts of things, sharing ideas. The idea of 8 billion people sharing thoughts online in real time is a terrifying concept to establish power, like especially media, like all these sorts of things. But I think understanding where Matt's coming from versus Brie, I've actually watched this twice and the full one, which was that I think you've got to understand where he's building to, because I'm already there, so I already know where he's building to, which is that there's a whole bunch of people with niche issues who have been broadly impacted by an overall MO, an overall strategy, an overall set of, practices through the media, through nudges, through troll fight, all those things that I've talked to you guys about before. They're all victims of it, but they're all sort of fixating on their specific little sort of way that they were impacted by it. They're not sort of going upwards. And Matt's sort of trying to tell again, I only reverse engineer things. I'm not an insider, but what I can see is that he's building to a bigger thing that's going to make everyone feel better and less gaslit and like they're not crazy. What I see with Brie is that she's still trying to sort of integrate. I went through this process through the gender stuff, but I noticed that Abigail Schreier's been given access to the Twitter files. So there's these niche people that will eventually.
She? I didn't know.
Yeah. So no, I saw
exciting.
her name. Yeah. So, but also you're seeing that they're asking for the list of journalists who've been given access. Like that's terrifying. The FTC.
Well, and they kept, if you watch the hearings today, they kept trying to get sources out of him. And when he would call them out on it, they would deny that that's what they were doing.
And also Jack. I mean, Jack was is one of Taibbi's sources as well. So it's not just, I find it I think it's not so much disingenuous. I think it's actually just I was watching her because I like Brie generally. Like, I think that she's a good faith actor, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell when people are lying. Yeah. And sorry, Briahna, I say Brie because I use it as, but and also she's on the Hill this morning explaining her position, so it was a little bit more clarifying. But I think that there's a lot of people through gender, through race, through being activists, being sort of MAGA. It doesn't matter what your issue is. You've been gaslit and treated a certain way by established power using the tech platforms, and tech platforms are taking the hit. I feel this is my role, is to defend tech, which is I feel they're scapegoats, force a bigger for endemic political problems. And I feel like we're in a battle for, it is kind of, that's why you go, the history of sort of the internet and the people that have been sort of unpersoned and unalived over the years for fighting for free internet. I think you'd be surprised, and I think that's the real battle, and I think that's the story that Matt's building to. And Brie is just a normal person,
right?
A normal person like you and I, who's got our thing, who's got our event where we felt that, and we want answers. And I think that's
right.
kind of his frustration, which is you can't pick those fistfights without
also, I mean, look, it's
crossing
over.
T's, dotting I's, right?
It's over.
Yeah.
It's over. I mean, it bears no real relevance on the world right now, unfortunately.
No.
Right? I mean,
the internet's a scapegoat, right? Yeah.
Let's take a few super chats here before we move on. Excuse me. Apocalyptic Optimist. I like that screen name. That's a good name. It's amazing how hypocritical Briahna is. She will say, why trust Taibbi's source because it's Elon letting him, yet is fine to go along with Seymour Hersh with a blank source. So I think what that analogy kind of misses, and thank you for the $10. I think it's a decent point, but I think what that analogy somewhat misses is that she's not saying what Taibbi's reporting is not true. She's just saying it's biased, whereas people who shit on Seymour Hersh are just saying they don't believe that we blew up Nord Stream, right? I don't think Briahna's accusing Taibbi of being dishonest or getting bad information from Elon Musk. I think she is accusing him of accepting information that was parsed before it got to him. So that's where I think that distinction lies. But look, I'm not totally against the criticism, and I believe Glenn Greenwald even made this point to Taibbi's face that, look, I wouldn't have taken this assignment because I would be afraid that I'm only getting half the story. That's fine. I mean, that's his choice. But that in and of itself does not invalidate the substance of the material being presented. Even if it is from a biased source, there's no question that what we're seeing on here is legit and true. There's no fabricated information. There's no destroy. And Taibbi has not editorialized to the point where you could say it is biased in its presentation. The way, honestly, like Tucker's January 6th thing, which we'll get to later, was biased in its presentation. I'm not even saying that's not true, but it was biased in its presentation. With Taibbi, you can't even really say that.
And is it really this is what it sounds like? Are you saying it's Taibbi's job to make sure that the right can't come out of this with a legitimate grievance?
Exactly, right.
Because it sounds like that's what you're expecting from him. You're expecting him to dig around until he finds an equivalent set of incidents that target the left, which, based on his research, and Taibbi is a top-notch old-school reporter, one of the last defenders of the tradition of fact-based, go wherever the facts lead without any fear or favor kind of reporters. If he's saying, look, I mean, we've dug around, we haven't seen that, I'd say chances are it's not there.
And
it's
also,
not there
I'm
to
sorry,
be found beyond
would
what
he?
he has said. The Truth Out and Consortium News was they did find that.
Why would he go out of his way to settle the score for the left? Meaning, why would he go out of his way to make sure the left came out looking equally good? I mean, I know we're jumbling the timeline a bit because at the time they did the interview, he hadn't testified yet. But if Bree takes a look at the testimony today, it was Republican Jim Jordan praising his work, and it was the Democrat calling him a so-called journalist. So you expect him not to just tell you to go fuck yourself if you have that problem? Like, he shouldn't go out of his way to tell you to go fuck yourself to the point where it affects the reporting. But he's to the point where, you got a problem with what I say, and you're a fucking Democrat. You can go eat shit. And I think he's totally justified in feeling that way.
But I think she also felt she was, I think maybe a bit more charitable, a more charitable way to look at the way Bree was questioning him was that maybe lawyers going to lawyer. You got to understand how lawyers are. Much like comms people are comms people. They see optics. I sit there with activists all the time trying to explain what optics is. Like you could be technically correct, but optics. I think maybe she saw this line of questioning coming down the pipe and was kind of trying to get him, get people to sort of to state his case and defend his case. That's what lawyers sort of do, right? They poke holes in arguments. So it might just be that it's her reflex to do that. It's not necessarily that she's I think in a weird way, it's a misfire, but she's trying to help because she's just trying to give.
I don't think so. And look, and look, I'm not looking to attack Bree here. I don't feel like this is in bad faith. I agree with Keaton's take. You know, her head is in 2020 primaries. She can't get out of that headspace, and she's delusional about the threat that the left poses and how much sleep the establishment loses about them. She's right that there was a moment there where they were worried about them, and they did pull this kind of shit on Sanders. But they didn't have to take it to this level.
No, they pulled it on TV. You never got to the Super Bowl, man. You never got to the World Series where you were dealing with the heavy hitters.
They never had to take it this far to derail Sanders because they're dealing with a voting block that can just be told by Barack Obama, you got to vote for Joe.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand that we're having race riots and he's the person who wrote mass incarceration, but you got to vote for Joe. He's the one who can win, right?
Exactly.
So that's it. Why would they have to do this when you're dealing with a primary voters that are that mindless? They don't need that. They have Barack.
Right. When you're talking about censorship of the left on Twitter, what you're mostly talking about are AI bots catching certain words and phrases and nailing Garland Nixon for it, or nailing, to the extent that Jackson Hinkle was on the left at one point, that's arguable, but nailing him for it, right? Like, that's what you're talking about. When you talk about anti-establishment voices being censored, you're not talking about the coordinated effort, not only within Twitter, but as we've all read and we've all covered on the show extensively, the coordination between Twitter and the security state to bend the rules or hide the rules or temporarily suspend the rules to make these massively consequential decisions. I'm sorry, the right wing was on the receiving end for, at least from what we could tell, 95% of those actions. And I'm sure Matt Taibbi, this is where it comes down to knowing Matt Taibbi's, but you don't think Matt Taibbi would publish something if he found something that nefarious against the left? Like, you think he would just sit on that because he wants to have his ass kissed by Jim Jordan? Like, no, I'm sorry. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. At a certain point, you just have to trust that he's not that guy because there's evidence to suggest he's not that guy.
Actually, you could argue that a lot of these scientists and doctors who were offering counter narratives on the crisis that shall not be named, a lot of them were liberal left people. You know, most people in that space are not right-wing MAGA hat wearing people, and they were suppressed.
If they are, they're not on Twitter. They're not keyboard warriors for the MAGA movement, right? Right. That's their business, their job. It's an esteemed profession.
They stood on Tripwire. That's what happened, right?
Exactly.
Just Tripwire.
Let's take a few more of these on this topic, and then Teo will let you go because trust me, you're not going to want to stick around for the next segment. You don't want to get caught up in that. All right, here we go. Here we go. Tusker. Thank you, Tusker. As long as Taibbi focuses on intelligence agencies, eventually he'll uncover censorship on the left. Yes, eventually. I think that's right. But the progressive movement serves empire. Yeah, exactly. That's a very good way of putting it. Thank you. This is another way of putting it, by the way, that I think is good. This was not a super chat, but I thought it was a fine chat. Red fash is a threat to blue fash. Yeah, exactly. This is just team sports, right? I mean, look. The blue team, as we will get into later in the show, is putting mentally ill people in solitary confinement for walking around the Capitol building. So don't fucking tell me that fascism is unique to the Republicans. I mean, you could just get out of here. So yeah, good comment. Thank you. And Virtuoso. That's why I wonder where was the left Fop the Seal moment. That's our surname for that. I think Fop the Seal is good. That sounds like an album. That sounds like a Fish album, from back in the day. We'll get to that later. I mean, look,
Radiohead.
Yeah, right, exactly. I don't want to step too much on the last segment, but we'll be talking about that stuff later on. But I think we more or less got to it, which when we said, like, look, the left would never do that. The left is still triggered by that. I mean, come on. If you still wake up in cold sweats over that, then do you expect to be considered a threat to establishment power. Like, it's just embarrassing, right? Thank you, Virtuoso. Appreciate it, bud. Cool Blue 71. Perhaps the actual left has not been effective because enough of them grew well provided by their parents. Lack of experience, or like, I don't know what Bree's upbringing is, but she's an Ivy League educated lawyer. She has said openly she made a lot of money in that role and gave a lot of it up to work for the Sanders campaign, which, you know, good on her for that. It was a good fight to fight. And I understand why she's emotionally attached to it. You know, we're just starting to get a little bit of a Twitter following. I never really knew how to use it very well. But even now that we're getting a little bit of a following, I find myself looking at it all the time to see what's going on. Could you imagine Briahna Joy Gray with hundreds of thousands of followers and thousands of trolls nipping at her heels every second of every day? I mean, it drives you crazy. And of course, you become invested in it to the point where it becomes this thing that you can't shake. And that's where I think she's coming from. And she's not, you know... Our next segment, we're going to have some words for some people, and she happens to be on their side in this case. But I would never lump her in with them because she's an honest person, and I feel I don't feel like clobbering her. I feel like this is more of a come on, man. Like, come on. I know I get it, but come on. That was a little bit of a ridiculous interview, I have to say. She's long been convinced that she was shadow banned. I think that's behind her approach to the interview. That's an interesting point, PMC. Thank you for the $4.99. That's interesting. I mean, that could be that certainly could be. That There's
a lot of personal grievances,
that's an interesting theory. Yeah. I mean, exactly. There's certainly personal grievance involved. You could see that. She wears that on her sleeve pretty much. She doesn't go out of her way to hide that. So that could have something to do with it. Thank you for the.
But they also still buy the promise of change, right? Sorry, Keaton, I didn't mean to do
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No.
They buy that. They still buy that promise, right? Which is the.
Of course, right.
That I've seen this happen to my academic friends, my corporate friends, where they buy all this ESG stuff. They still think that like HR are their friends, and they've just got this brainworm where they're just too comfortable, and they haven't stepped on the tripwire yet. And it's only when that happens, when there's an event where they step out of line from this thing, that they feel the full weight and that full backlash of what that looks like. So, you know, and then so I've had so many people go, post-COVID accelerated that, but people have gone, I see that now. Oh, wow.
This is I was thinking about this today. This is always the case, even under monarchy. It's always the bourgeoisie who are the bootlickers for the establishment, because they are exactly in a place that is going to make you deeply conformist. They have enough to have something to lose and not enough to challenge power.
Right.
They are always the most invested in the system. So this is part of why I'm skeptical of a lot of the conversation around identity. Because when I look at my friends, the ones who have similar white-collar PMC professions, regardless of race, regardless of sexuality, regardless of any identity markers, they have the same opinions for the most part.
Yeah.
I find that people's worldview breaks down more along lines of class than it does along lines of identity.
I agree. Jessica, thank you for the $4.99. I didn't understand the FCT stuff. Can you guys give some context to that part? Yeah, see, I didn't watch most of the hearings today, so I don't know.
This is a separate thing.
Yeah.
So the Wall Street Journal reported that the FTC were going after Elon Musk.
Oh, right.
They've requested. So there's a separate inquiry so they're going with the privacy angle, which again, this is where these things
the privacy of users.
They weaponize good policy and they misuse it to the point where you don't trust the policy at all, even if it's a good policy. That's where you need that vigilance, right? And so they're using trust and privacy which is basically dragging him over the coals for a breach of privacy. So user privacy. Suddenly they're regulating tech.
Yeah.
What a shot over privacy, like suddenly a decade too late. But,
so basically
it's very important.
Yeah, not the FCT, Kinky. The
FTC.
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 But they've asked for the names of journalists.
Yeah, they asked Twitter what journalists they're speaking with.
Yeah.
Which that was something Taibbi said in the hearing. He was like, I lived in Russia. I was there when Putin took over. I knew a lot of journalists who got killed. So I'm very aware of what goes on in a totalitarian society.
Mhm.
And this is something I never thought I would see in the United States. And something he said that was really interesting and chilling was he said, once a government starts sending out these kinds of inquiries, it's usually foreshadowing something worse.
Well,
This
yeah.
was a
Well,
Mussolini
yeah, exactly.
thing, right? Yeah.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken because, like I said, I was catching parts of this hearing between feeding chickens out of my kids' hands, right? But because I was watching it on a farm today. But didn't Jim Jordan even butt in and ask, like, "Hey, are you asking a journalist to reveal his source here?"
Yeah,
right.
He did more than once because they kept taking that angle. When did you first speak to Elon Musk?
Right. I mean, look, it is impossible to imagine, as recently as the Bush years, that a Republican would be shaming a Democrat for doing that.
Right.
Impossible to imagine that would be the Republican Party.
That's how I kept feeling watching that. We're living in the upside down, man. This is just Republicans making classic ACLU freedom of speech, no matter what, absolute arguments in defense of the First Amendment, and the Democrats doing everything they can to obfuscate what the actual subject of these hearings are by smearing the witnesses, by trying to trick them into revealing their sources, and with red baiting. It's like it's like they stepped out of the McCarthy hearings.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's also just, I think it's the line is people who know history and people who don't. And some of us who have a very, very sensitive, pain, there's a pain barrier there where more and more people go, this is too far. This is too far. It keeps,
No, I'm sorry.
And
Go
Republicans
ahead.
are going to do that. Oh, sorry, even conservatives. There's going to be people that have a hard line around authoritarianism. Like that's the divide, and people who go, "You're playing with this is fascistic stuff,"
right?
It really is. And I think it's just like you can be anti-fascist on all counts, like across the political spectrum. Like this is it means you understand the events of history, and that you go, "This is deeply concerning."
I agree with you 100%. I would just, I personally would be a bit more pointed with it just to put things, in a very specific perspective here, because I think a lot of these libs have read their history. I think it's not just a matter of knowing history. It's a matter of, was the election of Donald Trump this Men in Black flashy thing that made you forget everything that came before it? Because that's what it is. I mean, you have all these libs who were marching against the Iraq War, who were railing against the security state during the Bush years, and it's like they forgot any of that ever happened as soon as Donald Trump took office. He was the turning point because he has become the center. They didn't make Donald Trump the right. They made Donald Trump the political center, to the point where everything in his orbit, any view in his orbit, whether it's left, right, whatever, they don't even think about it in that in-depth a way. Anything within that magnetic field is just out of bounds, right? And that creates a certain totalitarianism. And when you apply that in certain respects, it becomes, yes, absolutely, fascism. No question about it. No question about it. There is no daylight between... Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, it was inevitable that the internet was going to lead to this kind of showdown between elite power and the people, because this is terrifying to them. At first, what's really interesting, and if anyone can find this, please let us know. There was an ad campaign way back during the heady days after the Soviet Union went down and the internet was new and everyone was kind of fat and happy and the economy was great. I believe these ads were done by Microsoft. And it was these images of people all around the world, in Africa, in China, all using the internet. And the tagline for these ads, and I swear to God, I cannot find them anywhere now. And you can find old Schlitz ads from the 50s on the internet, and I cannot find these ads. The tagline was, "Is this a great time or what?" And that was the whole vibe of the 90s, right? Like the end of history, right? We won the Cold War. We're wiring the world. We're going to bring everyone together in this global economy. And, that was a very compelling vision. And it's because that vision was so compelling that the Davos set was able to use it to undermine our democratic institutions around the world by premising that their project on what was a beautiful vision, right? And we're all going to become wealthy together, right? It's going to be this global community, and we're not going to, basically they were selling us that we're going to be living in the Star Trek future, right? Like, this is where we're going. We're going to put aside all of our ancient grudges and grievances, and the internet is going to pull us all together, and it's great. And then they found out that the internet allows schmucks like us to have a show like this. And then they said, uh-oh.
Right, exactly.
Uh-oh.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't
but also,
have
that's
that.
where tech bros, you got to understand the psychology of tech bros like Elon Musk. And this is why
believe me, I know.
I tend to, which is that I think this sort of knee-jerk billionaire hate stuff that comes out of the left. Sometimes I think when you understand the history of these things, and because I've worked alongside founders over the years, like we collectively are utopian. We genuinely believed that tech would enable democracy.
Right.
We truly believed that.
Yeah.
I still do. Like, I still fight like hell against this thing, because it's like, my God, I could go do anything else. But I don't. I'm saying, like, that I think that's why I cut Musk some slack, because he's failing in a horrible, really impossible way. And he's got his flaws and is an epic fuckwit. However, in some respects, that I get, I think a lot of the misunderstanding is about how these guys are wired, how they were like over the barrel with venture capital. So they sold 70% of their businesses, were forced into these business models. You know what I mean? All of these things, they were over a barrel. And so that's the real battle that's going on. And I think that's where Brie sort of misses that, because she's sort of hyper-focused on that part. But that's the bigger story that I think Matt's trying to sort of tell. But it's very complex. And there's a lot of moving parts to it.
Well, in the end, this is the irony of how the internet has played out, at least to this point. It had this promise of enabling speech, but really, in a way, it's become like the classic Twilight Zone episode, "To Serve Man." It's a cookbook, right? It looked like this great prospect for democracy, and so everyone got lured into it to the degree that you really can't function. You can't build a movement without it anymore.
Of course.
And now the trap is sprung. We're all stuck here. And if they can win this battle, that shuts down that's the greatest threat to freedom of speech since the invention of the printing press.
Yeah.
The
I don't know
internet,
if you guys have followed
it's been inverted from being an enabler of democracy to being a stifler of speech. In a lot of ways, you were freer when you were handing out pamphlets on a corner than you are now, because nobody could come and shut down all the pamphleteers. But now they can shut down all the voices on the internet.
Well, that's when they actually took your freedom seriously and valued it, when your freedom was not a threat to anybody, because you can only hand out so many pamphlets on a street corner in a matter of hours. Once you actually have reach, once you have the actual potential to influence things, all of a sudden, whoa, what was that thing about a First Amendment? Well, we got to get the asterisk pen out and start marking this up a bit, and that's kind of how that went. Let me just read two more of these super chats, Taya, before we move on.
Can I just mention one thing
of course,
while the audience is there, if they're curious, which is, I don't know, because I was late to the table with you guys, but I don't know if you were following what happened with Kiwi Farms and Cloudflare and what was happening there. I think that people who are curious about Kiwi Farms will have more answers about that whole that process of where they launder it through, like Washington Post, that ecosystem, to take an entire website down, not just at the hosting level, but at the ISP level globally. Like, the attack on this guy, and again, it's independent of what he was saying. I don't support the concept, but this was a war against like a forum that is absolutely insane. I could probably talk about it separately, but I have got stuff on my channel about it. But I think paying attention to how people have been like completely unpersoned for running an internet forum, again, doesn't matter what the forum is deeply chilling. And Cloudflare removed their protection of the website so that a cybercrime could be committed, cheered on by the mainstream media. So DDoS is a cyber terrorist, a cyber crime, right? And they basically removed it's much like they did with HN and those, other things before. But I think it's worth, but again, there was that whole TYT and Majority Report lost my trust in that moment because I went, that's not what happened. So anyway, so yeah, there was a whole thing there, but pay attention to that. Look into that, because it's like, that's where it leads,
All right, Taya.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was great to have you on.
Sound crazy?
Yeah, that's all right. No. Great to have you on.
We have some people.
Microdose.
Before you go, we have people asking what your channel and Twitter handle are.
You can just look at me. Just look for my name, but yeah, just look on my Twitter handles here. But I am my channel name.
Yeah, at Taya Lou.
Taya Smith. No, Taya Smith is Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah, Taylor Lou. That's your handle there.
Yeah. Like I said, you have to microdose this crazy shit because it gets big.
Of course.
Anyway.
Thank you, Taya. We appreciate you calling in. Thank you for your support. Thank you for chatting with us. It was a great segment. That was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Taya.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's knock out a couple of these super chats, and then we'll get to...
I starred one non-super chat because I got an answer to my question.
We'll take care of some business. Okay, great. Okay. All right, Zach, always getting us in trouble. What got me is 2 of the 3 GBD signers are left and far left. The third isn't political. The Florida surgeon, Jen Lepedo, California Dem, before DeSantis hired him, yet... Barry Weiss stressed it only as right wing. GBD equals yes, this on the screen. We have to come up with a rhyme for that one. That's a tough one. Give us a week to figure out something with that. But look, what I'll say about this, and thank you, Zach, for the $10 and the extra $2 there, the little tip on top. This ought to tell you something about the Twitter files as well. Barry Weiss has a lot of horrid views in my view. Yeah. But she's a mainstream lib in a lot of ways. Like before she quit the New York Times and stuff like that, like she's gone off the reservation a bit, but she still has a lot of those lib opinions. And so the fact that she got involved in this ought to tell you that like there are still people out there who will set personal opinions on certain issues aside in order to participate in a project whose goals and aims sort of transcend that. Right. And I think that says something.
I think anyone who's watching us...
And Barry Weiss is the black sheep of the family for a lot of reasons. All right? She sits at the kids' table at Passover. All right? We don't even let her sit at the grape. We don't even let her drink the wine. We say, grape juice for you. Grape juice.
Well, in Israel, I'm sure she's featured as a hero in a lot of circles.
I'm talking about at our Passover.
At our Passover. Yeah. You can't, on the one hand, be deeply critical of corporate media and at the same time kick somebody who has started what is one of the better alternative media sites to the curb because you don't agree with her on everything. The Free Press is one of the better projects of its kind out there right now. So you don't have to agree with Barry Weiss on everything. She's done a pretty good job giving a platform to people whose voices would never be elevated in the corporate media on a lot of subjects that need coverage.
Yeah, no, she had a lot of great pieces out, not her personally, but I remember reading about the Canadian trucker convoy. She had a lot of great pieces out on that. So yeah, no, absolutely. Credit where credit's due. All right, let's go through a couple of these. This was not a super chat. Russell, you flagged it. RG Raymond, you can read that one. I don't know.
The company behind the ad campaign Russell's talking about wasn't Microsoft. It was MCI Communications, aka Microwave Communications. Okay. All right. I mean, is that even still around? Was that one of those fly by night? Everyone's going to get rich in tech before the tech bubble burst in the 90s. Is that still around? MCI?
I don't know, but thank you, RJ Raymond. Taya's channel and Twitter handle. Well, we got you, Tusker. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button, everybody. Really helps us. We got a big crowd in here. If you like what you're seeing, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Like I said, really. What was that?
What was that?
What the fuck?
What?
Who the fuck is in here?
Who's shutting us down now?
What's going on in here? Oh, that's what's going on. Oh, that's right. Okay. All right. So just making sure we didn't forget about them there. All right. So, folks, This is going to be a fun one. All right. A few days ago, I think it was March 5th. All right. This was the day after Marianne Williamson went on MSNBC, and she was asked by Jonathan Capehart, if you are not the Democratic nominee, will you fall in line and support the Democratic nominee? Because what you're attempting is a daunting task. You are trying to primary out a sitting president. And she replied that she, as a patriotic American, will do everything in her power to ensure that the neo-fascist authoritarian movement, very much embodied by today's Republican Party, will not win in 2024. And of course, I and Russell, and I think most people who have been at this long enough of a certain common sense understand that to mean that, of course, she will eventually back the Democratic ticket.
Right.
And so I put out a tweet. I'm going to show you the tweet right now. It got a lot of attention. All right. I said, see, I posted a clip of the video. No dirty break. And the reason we're not playing this video again is because we already played it on the last show. I don't want to beat this particular dead horse to death here, right? One more time. No dirty break. Can Vanguard Pod and Briahna Joy Gray clear this up for their audience like they should have from day one? Again, didn't insult anybody. I'm just saying, okay, here, now we have it. She's saying she's going to do what she has to do to beat the Republicans, which of course means she's not going to run as a left spoiler candidate and take votes from the Democratic nominee. So if it's not her, logic would have it, of course, this means she is going to support the Democratic nominee in the fall. The fact that she spun it as, well, that's why I'm running, because I'm the most electable, every politician's going to do that, right? Right. Every politician's going to do that. But of course, if she considers it her patriotic duty to defeat the Republicans, and she calls them fascist and authoritarian, of course she's going to back the Democrat. That's common sense. So
also, I understand the game that she's playing here. She knows she doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning this nomination. But she's prepared to suck in all these poor sons of bitches to work on her campaign and donate to her campaign, while at the same time she's signaling to her friends in Beverly Hills, no, don't worry, I'm not a threat. Don't worry. Don't worry. When I'm done playing candidate, I'm going to sheepdog all these people to Biden. Don't worry. You don't have to be mad at me.
Exactly. So this tweet, as of a few hours ago when I screenshotted it, so it wasn't that much at the time, but as you could see, it did pretty well. 11.3 thousand views. We're not a huge Twitter account. We haven't really started trying to build a Twitter following until fairly recently because I never really knew how to use it very well.
I get stuck with the one fucking millennial who doesn't know how to use Twitter.
Yeah, he gets stuck with the millennial who can't use Twitter. I'm getting better at it though.
You fucking Amish prick.
Yeah, and this got out there quite a bit. It got quite a few retweets, quite a few replies. No replies, oddly enough, from Briahna Joy Gray, which I kind of expected because she has hundreds of thousands of followers. She probably gets thousands of mentions a day. But I was a little bit more offended, I should say, although not surprised. No response from the Vanguard boys. And like I said, not calling them an asshole, not calling them an idiot, not calling them a poser, not calling them a grifter, right? None of that. I would never say such a thing about them, right? But I just said, hey, can we please clear this up? Because I actually, as much as I have distaste for them, I don't have distaste for their audience. Like, I am trying to save people the pain of having to go through this again, only to feel crushed when it ends, right? So I said, can we just clear this up, right? No answer. No answer. Then it comes to my attention. I get a message saying, hey, they responded to you on their show. Oh, wow. So I look at it. They play the clip that I tweeted out. And here's what they have to say here on the Sling Blade Meets Boys Don't Cry show. All right, let's take a listen.
Yeah. So we also got tagged in a tweet by those DueDissident guys. That guy and his grandpa. That I mean, it's a cool show. The kid and his grandpa. One goal. They just wanted to wipe Jimmy Dore's ass one day. I'm pulling for them, but they were like, "See, she says she's not going to do a dirty break," and I was like, "Man, I think some of your grandpa's dementia is running off on you because she doesn't say that at all." in the clip right here, right? What does she say? She says that she's going to do everything in her power to defeat the fascist GOP, and that she believes her candidacy is uniquely primed to do that job. So I'm curious why I got a bunch of tweets at me being like, see, at Vanguard Pod, at Briahna Joy Gray Pod, like fucking.
Okay, I just explained why you got a bunch of tweets at you, because what you're saying is absurd. So I'm not going to make that point again. I'm going to toss to Russell to clear up this age question of yours. So Russell, do you have anything to say about that?
All right. Well, first of all, I mean, it's a common kind of neoliberal elite opinion that grown men shouldn't hang around playgrounds, but I didn't listen, and look what I found. You know, if I had listened to that advice, I wouldn't have a show. Really, though, if you look at the timelines, it's impossible for me to be Keaton's grandfather. What the boys might not know, though, is that I did live in the Midwest about 25 years ago, and I banged a lot of cocktail waitresses in Kansas City. So, you know, Gavin with those blonde locks, probably not, although one of my daughters is a natural blonde. Zach, you're a little Jewy, man. You're a little Jewy. So listen, tell your mom I lost her number and I'm going to give her a call. Okay?
See if the ancestry DNA traces back to the men's room at Harper's Ferry Cracker Barrel or something like that.
You have no idea what used to go on behind those ice makers.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, that age does line up a bit better there. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s. Russell's in his early 50s, so he can't be my dad. But you guys, it's possible.
It's possible.
It is possible.
It's possible.
It is possible.
I mean,
Lived
look,
in Chicago for a while, did some traveling around those parts, you know.
I was out there. I mean, look, my other kids are smart, but you're bound to get a Fredo sooner or later.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Those boys don't always swim that far, right?
Yep.
So anyway, you know, ageist dig aside, which is very unwoke of them, right? Ageist dig aside, they also accused us of teaming up to, quote, wipe Jimmy Dore's ass, right? And they called us Jimmy Dore ass wipers on this show. They also called us Jimmy Dore ball lickers a couple of weeks back. I'm glad they mentioned both of those things, because we're going to have to make a note not to do those things in the wrong order. We would not want to give Jimmy one of those yeast infections. You know, if you do the ass wiping and then the ball licking and you don't wash your hands in between, that could create a little bit of
you got to have
problem.
Those sanitary wipes when you're doing
it. And, you know, look, I mean, maybe Jimmy has a bidet in his house, but we don't meet at Jimmy's house. We always meet him at a motel. Right. So, you know, we've never actually, you know, been able to run that experiment the proper way. So thanks for the note. We'll keep that in mind.
Say what you will about Jimmy. He always brings the good scotch.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He takes care of us well. He takes care of us well. But I want to play a little clip of theirs from a show either before or after they made this little dig on us here. This is them making the standard coddling argument about Max Blumenthal and Jimmy Dore. They were accusing them of coddling Jimmy Dore and kissing up to Jimmy Dore. And they made a fairly stunning admission about themselves and the early days of their show and the evolution since Exhibit B, shall we say.
Cadre of these guys surrounding him who will constantly go to bat for him, who will constantly defend him at all costs. Because why? Because he's the one that's like they're all just living off of his fucking crumbs, basically, right? For a while, the Vanguard was living off of Jimmy's fucking crumbs, right? And then we had that whole fucking meltdown where we were like, okay, time to have some principles. This man's going right wing as fuck.
Time to have some principles. Can we hear that one more time? I'm sorry. Can we hear that one more time?
Right. For a while, the Vanguard was living off of Jimmy's fucking crumbs, right? And then we had that whole fucking meltdown where we were like, okay, time to have some principles. This man's going right wing as fuck.
All right. Time to have some principles. A year and a half into the show, you happen to have a crisis of conscience where you were no longer going to ride Jimmy Dore's coattails, because when you guys started, you were all about force the vote. You would trash the squad all the time. You were doing basically his show. In fact, as I recall, I even sent you guys a message way back then, which you also did not respond to, inviting you to do a collaboration, because I dug you guys. Hey, they're cute kids. They're trying their best. Their head's in the right place. They're saying the right things. Let's see if we can maybe work together, right? No response. Not very surprised, obviously. But at a certain point, you had a crisis of conscience when he got to a certain point where now he's too right wing for us to follow him there.
Yeah.
So then your little principles kicked in. Was it your principles kicking in, or did you make friends all of a sudden with Lance Bass and Sporty Spice over there, who are now your new benefactors, who you now go on shows and they come on your shows? It seems like you found a new crowd that you liked a little better than Jimmy, right? Why suck on those saggy Gen X Jimmy Dore teats when you can suck on those perky young millennial Kyle Kalinske teats, right? Right? That's what seems to have happened, because once you got those interviews lined up, your politics changed pretty much on a dime, and they haven't gone back since. And your audience hasn't come back since, if you notice. Maybe they didn't take us all that seriously because we have fewer subs than they do. We have fewer subs than they do because we haven't prostituted ourselves out for every single gossip story that crossed our eyes over the past 3 years. But if you notice, 430 people here in the audience now, our viewership is actually better than yours. It's actually higher than yours. So we actually have a bigger and more robust channel than yours now, despite the sub count, right? But anyway, it's fairly astounding that you would, on 2 separate occasions, take a dig at us. When, by the way, here's the thing that really bugs me about this, about that dig with the grandpa shit and the Jimmy Dore ass wiping. We tweeted at you to try and get a dialogue going. I didn't call you an asshole. I didn't insult you. I didn't do anything. I said, now that this dirty break...
This is why I don't have the Twitter password.
Exactly. Now that the dirty break thing has been refuted, can we put that to bed? And can you clear this up with your audience? And I assumed they just ignored me, but they weren't ignoring me. They actually had a response, but he waited to go on his show and make a little snot-nosed dig at us rather than engage us on Twitter, because if they actually engaged us on Twitter, I would engage back. And they knew, of course, that I would own their ass and embarrass their ass. So instead they hid like little punks and decided to take a swipe at us on their show rather than engage in an exchange, right? That's what really kind of bugged me about this whole thing. With regards to the ass wiping of Jimmy Dore, you have it right there on tape. Admitted ass wipers. We have a confession, folks. They were ass wiping until they found new asses to wipe. And now they're wiping those asses. And they're telling you it's because they got an attack of conscience and integrity. Do we buy that? I don't.
Yeah, they are literally so fundamentally stupid that they went on the air and admitted to their audience that they do not believe in the politics that they purported to believe in, that they pretended to have those politics in order to gain an audience. And now they've had a crisis of conscience, so now they're doing a pivot to their real politics. And as Keaton points out, they made new friends. And they made new friends with a lot of money. A lot of money. Hey, Marianne can cut a check. Kashama's not going to cut them a check. They're never getting a check out of Kashama Sawan, right? What does Kyle make? $2.2 million a year? How much money does Crystal have? Crystal has like $22 million.
I think net worth's about 40 mil. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are a couple of schmucks out in Kansas City without a full brain between them. They fall in with this crowd. Hey, look, they got dollar signs in their eyes. Clearly they had that from the beginning. They're telling their audience, we faked our politics to get a subscriber base. How dumb do you even if that's true, how dumb do you have to be to go on the air and tell your audience that? And beyond that, I'm sorry, man. I don't want to go negative. I know we have some overlap, believe it or not, with their audience. How dumb do you have to be to keep watching from that moment on? From that moment on, how can you ever trust these hosts again? They just told you they bullshitted you to get a subscriber base. And that's all of a piece. Look, we're not dumb guys. We got a couple of smart Jew boys with Yiddish cups here. We know we could grow our subscribers much faster by spending all day, every day, chasing the latest. Did you hear what Shank said about Bree and what Bree said? We're not going to do that kind of a show, man. And I think that's a big part of why, Keaton mentioned we have better live view counts than they do, even though they still have more subscribers than we do, although I think not for much longer. Because ever since that Aaron Mate interview, their subscribers have been plummeting and our subscribers have been rising. Our subscribers are very loyal because nobody else is really
smart.
doing
we have
this
the best
show.
people. Yeah.
We have the best people. We have the best. We have the best subscribers. No, because we're offering something a little different. And even if you don't agree with us, you know we're not bullshitting you. And I think that is very compelling for a lot of people. You know we're not on the grift. If we were on the grift, we wouldn't do a J.K. Rowling segment. We know we're going to get shit. We're doing a segment like that. We would do what they do. I mean, it's just an entire show built around left YouTube gossip. So it's not surprising that people that would be comfortable doing a show like that are also people who are going to straight out lie about their politics. Right? At that point, what happened to the van? Where didn't they fundraise all this money to go around with a van? What happened to that money? Your money went into crypto and GameStop, people. If you gave money to these guys, that's where it is. It's in GameStop.
Well, all right. So we're not done yet, folks. We're not done yet, folks, because they said what they had to say about us, and that's fine. You know, whatever. They happen to get a super chat from a good friend of the show named Colin Radix Carter. You guys, a lot in the chat probably know Colin from the Indie News Network. Guy. Very sweet guy, very nice guy, very smart guy. He's got a good show of his own. He was feeling very, very generous and decided to give them a super chat pushing back on their Marianne narrative. So let's pick this up at Colin's super chat here.
And for the $10, name one YouTube personality who says to sit on their hands. If Marianne Williamson used her platform to push mutual aid, third parties, etc., that would be one thing. But she's running in a system that she said is rigged. It is.
Okay, let's just, because he read that very fast. So, of course, the straw man that a lot of the Marianne stands give you is, well, if you're against Marianne, that means you have given into despair and hopelessness. And what Colin makes the point here, and he gave $10 of his hard-earned money to make this point. It was a noble sacrifice, my friend. Even though it went to the wrong hands, it was a noble sacrifice because they wouldn't have read this if you didn't put $10.
It was a sacrifice play.
Well done. I'll hit you back on your, because now you guys have monetization, so we'll hit you back with a super chat. We'll make up for that. You shouldn't have to suffer any more than you did. Yeah. Name one YouTube personality who says to sit on their hands. In other words, who's telling you to just disengage rather than support Marianne? If she used her platform to push mutual aid, third parties, etc., that'd be one thing, but she's running in a Democratic primary. This is going to go nowhere. Your efforts are better spent on mutual aid and third parties and outside movements, things like that. So here's their answer.
It is rigged, Colin, but guess what? It's even more rigged against the...
Hold on, let me get his phone.
Colin, but guess what? It's even more...
Sorry.
Be one thing, but she's running in a system that she said is rigged.
But I'm the grandpa.
Colin, but guess what? It's even more rigged against third parties. It's even more rigged against third parties. So there's this argument. It's like the DNC is going to disenfranchise any progressive running within their ranks. Like they're never going to let a progressive win in the Democratic Party. Bro, do you think they're going to let a fucking third party candidate win either?
Okay, bro, that's not the point, bro. Bro, the point is, bro, that when you run outside the Democratic Party, bro, you get to appeal, bro, to the 250 million plus Americans, bro, who are not registered Democrats, bro. You understand what I'm saying? When you run in the Democratic Party, you are only appealing to the 30 million or so Democratic primary voters, which is very limiting for a sincere left movement. Because if you actually want to mobilize working people, you have to mobilize and engage with people who are not invested in Democratic primary politics, since Democratic primary politics has proven a barren wasteland for working class politics. And so, no, you are not going to win this year as a third party or even as a labor movement or anything like that. But guess what, morons? You're not going to win this year with Marianne fucking Williamson. So it doesn't matter. That's not an argument. That's not an argument. Unbelievable.
No, they're not. They're not going to let a fucking third party candidate win. They never have. They never will. Does that stop me from voting third party? No, it doesn't. I voted for Jill Stein. I voted.
All right, very good. I'm going to skip ahead to Russell's son here.
Herself. I can't support her. I just don't quite understand how that's realistic, man.
Let's see what your boys got here.
Yeah, and also name one YouTube personality who says to sit on their hands.
That's
of course,
why
they're
I
not telling you
abandoned
to
them.
sit on their hands. They're just not telling you what the fuck to do. They want to stir.
Okay, this is just absolutely outrageous.
Disenfranchising herself. I can't support her. I just don't quite understand how that's realistic, man.
Yeah, and also name one YouTube personality who says to sit on their hands. Of course, they're not telling you to sit on their hands. They're just not telling you what the fuck to do. They want to stir up all your anger and then give you no direction. So the only thing that you do to protest is watch their fucking show. It's exactly what MSNBC.
Okay, that is blatantly, flagrantly untrue. That is an outrageously dishonest thing to say. You are either completely ignorant or you're a liar. Frankly, I don't know which is true in this case because you have a proven track record of being both pathetically ignorant and extremely dishonest when it comes to characterizing what other people say. Now, they're not talking about us here. I don't think we're on their radar that much. There's no doubt what Zach is talking about here is the Revolutionary Blackout Network because they have a hard-on for RBN. And so they are saying right here that RBN is not pushing any sort of outside strategy in terms of outside movements or mutual aid. Rome
Are you
RBN,
telling me that a couple of Kansas City white boys have an issue with working class black men and their channel?
Well, listen, I don't even have to go there because what I will tell you right now is just the facts. Just the facts here. Fact, Rome from RBN is now working on building a community library. He is accepting donations and he is busting his ass to build a library. That is called mutual aid. When Rome is done building that library, will he have won the presidency? No, but neither will have fucking Marianne Williamson. What Rome is going to have for his
He'll
efforts,
be closer to the presidency
he'll be
than
closer.
she will.
What he's going to have to show for it is a place where people, individuals, children, and families can come and read for free, which is a beautiful thing. What you assholes are going to have is a sticky keyboard from all the cum you shot into it, pitching Marianne 2024. So that's number one. Number two, Nick Cruz from RBN has not only advocated for Shama Sawant's workers' strike back, he appeared and spoke at the launch event this Saturday. So how you can come on here and say so dismissively that, oh, well, they're not telling you what to do. They're not telling you to sit on their hands, but they're not giving you an alternative. That is an absolute lie. Whether you meant it that way or not, you are either talking out of your ass or you're lying. You're lying. You cannot just say things about people that are untrue. I'm sorry. How fucking dare you invisibilize the work that these guys are doing while all you fucking dipshits are doing are sitting at a keyboard coming up with catchy headlines and thumbnail images trying to gin up this joke-ass Marianne 2024 campaign. It's fucking shameful. Listen, you can be wrong. You can be wrong. I think Briahna Joy Gray is wrong about this. You notice I don't have these words for Briahna Joy Gray because Briahna Joy Gray is not an intellectual midget and she's not a shameless fucking liar. And that's what you guys are. And it's really disgusting that you would go up there and just say so dismissively that they're not offering any alternatives. When not only are they offering the alternatives, they're practicing the alternatives. They're practicing the alternatives. And so it's just shameful. It's just horrible. You have anything to add before we finish this? Because we have more. We have more.
We do have more. You know, I don't want to jump ahead, but you know, if you look at this across the board, not just the Vanguard, if you look at who's lining up with the Marianne Williamson thing, and you look at who's lining up with the Kshama Sawant thing, and you couldn't have a better experiment. They launched on the same day.
Right.
And
Right,
this comes back to what I was saying earlier. It's a class thing. Look at Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore comes out of the working class. All the people who come out of the working class understand that the Democratic Party is a dead end, that they're just going to suck up your money and energy, and they're not going to do anything for you. And we need to build outside power and outside movement. And all the people who want to sheepdog their listeners and viewers into the Marianne Williamson campaign, there were all these fucking privileged white kids, man. I'm sorry. Like those are the people who are supporting that. And they might even be doing it in all good faith and honesty. I don't really think that's the case here. Some of them, I think, really, see it that way. But it's because of their class perspective that they can't imagine another way. They just can't think outside of that box.
All right, let's keep going.
During the entire Trump era, it's what Fox News does during the Joe Biden era. They stir up all of your fucking energy and then point it in the direction of nowhere, right?
Again,
Colin, you respond to me. What YouTube personality that's telling you not to vote for Marianne Williamson is telling you to vote for another candidate that's already announced? They don't fucking exist. They're
not telling you to vote for another candidate, but that wasn't what he was saying. That wasn't Colin's question.
Right.
You're conflating two things. First, you said they're telling you to do nothing, and then you're saying because they're not telling you to vote or who to vote for, they're telling you to do nothing. Those two things do not compute, my friend. I'm sorry. Maybe you haven't taken, ninth grade logic yet, but
lip service to guys like Chris Hedges, Cornel West, Shama Sawant, a bunch of people who can't or will not run for president. Right?
No one's floated Chris Hedges, Shama Sawant, or Cornel West for president. No one has floated that. It's not about, listen, you're getting, whether you like it or not, unless somebody drops dead between now and then, you're getting Joe Biden, Ron DeSantis, or Donald Trump, January 20th, 2025. Maybe this phrase rings a bell. Grow up, because that's who's going to be president. One of those three people on January 20th, 2025. So you guys are stuck in this fantasy world of YouTube ratings. You need a show. You need a narrative for a show. That was the monologue I put out, whatever it was, 2 days back. Kyle's putting out a video a day on this Marianne thing. They're getting a lot of views. He's already off to the races about it. That's what this is about. But it's a fantasy. That's all it is.
And also, they're very often, they're raising this was the Crystal argument. Okay, you don't want to get behind Marianne Williamson. Fine. Why can't you do your thing and we do ours? Okay, you know why? Because when you try to line up the left behind some prosperity gospel, new age hippie, it discredits all of us. It plays to the worst stereotypes of what the left is and what the left is about. You get some rich, new age California person to represent us. That's almost as bad as being represented by Nancy Pelosi. It plays to all the worst stereotypes of what the left is. And you have to be really ignorant of the working class to think it's a good idea to put somebody like that forward as our avatar.
Right. Absolutely. Let's keep going. Like I said, not done. A few more minutes of this.
Right, you tell me how that's good fucking strategy, Colin. Colin, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're behaving like a mark.
Yeah, and
real
also,
nice way
Marianne
to treat a guy who
has
just gave you $10. Like, even if you disagree with him, like, do we talk to the super chat people like that? We had a super chat person ask what I thought was a flawed question earlier. Did I say, well, that's fucking stupid, man? Yeah, thanks for the $10, but you're really fucking dumb.
over and over again engaged in these direct mutual aid grassroots organizations.
Now this guy starts pitching Marianne as a mutual aid warrior. These guys, I gotta say, they're on script. I'll give him that. Maybe she should hire them as their the campaign press secretary. That would be fucking hilarious. I'll tell you what, if she hires these guys to be her press secretaries, I might throw the campaign a few bucks just for the comedy, just to keep it going.
Yeah,
look at long time
keeps
now.
going.
Just to keep it going, at least until
I
New
don't think
Hampshire.
her running for president in the Democratic Party is somehow at the expense of third parties or mutual aid, especially because she's suggested and hinted that she might run as a third party candidate if the DNC screws her.
Stop. We've already debunked this.
100%. 100%. So shout out to you, Colin. Really appreciate that. I'm sorry we had to swat down your argument there.
You can swat down anything. You're a moron. And what an obnoxious way to treat a viewer,
somebody who gave you money,
$10 and had a thoughtful, honest question. Colin wasn't done. Colin decided to throw a little tip on it, and this was my favorite part of the whole thing. Here we go. You can see his question. When are you guys going to talk about Shama Sawant's kickoff? Because the Workers' Strike Back movement launched on Saturday, March 4th, same day that the Marianne Williamson campaign launched. So Colin's saying, When are you guys going to talk about that? Here's something we're offering up. Okay, fine. You say we're offering nothing. We're offering the Shama Sawant worker strike back movement. Do you have anything to say about that? Let's take a listen.
When are you guys going to talk about Sawant's kickoff? We covered the Sawant, when she launched her entire new program, she decided that she was going to leave Socialist Alternative. She wasn't running for another re-election in city council. We covered that. So yeah, shout out to you, Colin. We already beat you to the punch there.
No, again, totally obnoxious. And again,
they don't even know what he's
untrue.
talking about.
You don't even know what he's saying. He's referring to the article that she put out in the Stranger magazine announcing back in, I think it was January something, that she was going to form this movement and that she was going to quit the Seattle City Council at the end of her term. He thought that meant he covered it. All right, done. Let's go back. Let's see who Russell Brand is posing for selfies with now and make segments out of that. We've already done the Shama Sawant thing once, and it probably didn't do very well in terms of view count, so who cares? Snoozers, right? Let's go back to our gossipy bullshit show. All right.
Let's go back to who said what about whose cousins, uncles, nephews on Twitter.
Exactly. All right. So here's how this goes.
Yeah, we talked about the worker strike back thing when like Zach said, she decided not to run for re-election in Seattle and started worker strike back. I'm still not 100% sure what worker strike back is.
He did a great job covering it then. That was a killer segment you did on it a couple months ago. Yeah, we covered it. Yeah, totally. What is it again?
Are they going to run candidates?
Are they going to run anybody? We're obsessed with running candients for president.
Is he auditioning for the Bill and Ted prequel? Is that what's going on here?
What?
I'm not really
candidate? I'm not sure.
Just like a...
What?
What's the point? Like, what are they?
What's the point of it? Yeah, we covered it. We like it. Yeah. What's the point of it? What is it? What are they doing? All right.
It's like a vague. It's a mutual aid network.
Yeah, vague mutual. No, it's not a vague. No, it's not. Yeah. Yes. Shama Sawant to quit Seattle City Council to launch vague mutual aid network. Yeah,
hang on. These people who work with their hands and their bodies
join the vague mutual aid network. Fist in the air. Vague mutual aid. All right, now this is where it gets funny. All right,
I think it's to give Shama her due. I don't have any problem with worker strike back. I think it's a great idea. I think essentially what she's doing is she's trying to create a place where we have more bodies, we have more organizations, people who are going to be able to band together and then say, hey,
now. All right, let me pause it for a second. Look at Gavin's face there. Yeah. That is the face of a man who is Googling worker strike back.
He's literally doing research while
it's starting to dawn on him that, perhaps we missed something. Perhaps my co-host here just embarrassed us yet again by giving an obnoxious, arrogant, and inaccurate response to a super chat question here. Maybe I should look into this on the spot while he's rambling. So
maybe I shouldn't have taken Kyle.
Hey, now we are going to stand with this union.
Maybe I shouldn't have taken Kyle all the way down to the shaft.
Maybe I should have. That's what I understand. They say that we're an independent movement organizing in our workplace.
Oh, he found it.
Streets against the bosses and their political servants.
Okay, good. Reading off the screen.
They're basically doing so as a way of demanding real raises for workers, union jobs for all.
He found it. Look at that. Look at it. He's quick research. Quick on your feet there. My friend, I found it.
And then fighting against discrimination,
like retroactively covering the thing that you supposedly covered in real time while you're slamming somebody who just gave you money for pointing out that you didn't cover it.
Right. We do retroactive research after insulting a guy who asked a question about it.
Sexism, all oppression, and providing, quality, affordable housing. But it's more about the protesting element of it, leading strikes, trying to get people to stir up trouble and trouble, as they say.
Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to throw shade.
I wasn't trying to throw shade.
Obviously, love Shama Sawant. I think she's.
We don't cover her
on the left. I just didn't really get was it a third party? What the point is?
But I thought it was a great idea. I had total respect for it. I just didn't really know what it was or what the point of it was, and never bothered to really follow up on it. Yeah.
I didn't see any benefit to us to covering it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's exactly.
I didn't think we'd get subscribers out of it. I didn't think we'd get donations, super chats. I didn't think we would get rich friends who might donate to our channel in order to build our neoliberal propaganda network.
Yeah, right.
I didn't see any of that potential in backing Kshama Sawant.
It seemed like a cool idea, except Kshama Sawant's husband never insulted David Pakman on Twitter, and so we could never really make a clippable segment out of it.
We didn't have an angle.
Yeah, we didn't have an angle is the problem. It just there's no angle.
He's talking working class politics and challenging the
I don't really get what
establishment
the point of that
in a
is.
real way,
Right.
rather than a futile presidential campaign that we can build a narrative around without having to think about it too hard, which is not our forte.
Yeah. Dumb dissidents. Googling is not a verb. Sick comeback there. Really great.
Yeah. Well, we can see who's still in the Vanguard audience.
Yeah,
we can see who they're attracting.
Is this the Vanguard audience, or is this Zach or Gavin? Is this one of those burner YouTube accounts? Is this you?
Could be.
Is that
Could
your
be.
comeback here? That Googling
Could
is not
be.
a verb? Okay. All right. We'll take that as a
Makes
comment.
sense. And it does look like they had an event this weekend where.
Oh
she
yeah, it looks
spoke
like they
and
had
said
an event this
capitalism
weekend.
uses
It looks like
the
they
divide
had an
and rule
event this
strategy in
weekend.
order for a tiny minority at the top
Looks
to
like they were
exploit
up to
billions of
something
workers.
this weekend while Marianne was giving her announcement. So maybe you should, I don't know. Hey guys, maybe I've burnt this bridge already, but we get an apology to Colin? I understand you blocked Colin because he sent you a spoken word piece that a colleague of his wrote about you guys. All right. But
They blocked him. They
blocked him. They blocked him for that, and stuff like that. So I don't know. Can we get it to can you say you're sorry? Can you say you're sorry to Colin? I think you owe the Revolutionary Blackout Network an apology for insinuating that they were, advocating for nihilism and despair. Again, a complete, total, demonstrable, provable lie. I mean, you guys can't just lie.
And
you can't lie. I know you're young. I know you're making your way in the world. Okay, take it from me and my grandfather. You got to be honest.
And
you got to be
Zach,
honest.
I want to apologize to you for not being there. That's going to change. That's going to change right now.
Maybe if you raised them right, they'd come out a little better.
He might not have turned out to be such a weenie.
All right. Cut on the Vanguard segment. What do you think? That's a wrap on that one.
I would say that's a wrap. That's a wrap. we brought it full circle. Look at Colin.
Colin's getting some love. You're welcome, fam. Thank you, Colin.
We're gonna pay it forward, my friend.
We are gonna pay it forward, my friend. And I will get that video of your friends thing up. I did watch it. It was very good. I don't want to attach it to this clip because I don't want them coming at him when they should come at us. If they're gonna bring it somewhere, they can bring it here. But I will get that into a clip because we might. We can't because. Anyway, forget it. I don't go into detail about that. But anyway, Virtuoso is on the line. Virtuoso, your mic is on. If you want to talk now because we got another segment we got to get to. What's up, Virtuoso? How are you?
Yeah, I just want to get in on this topic because.
You do? Oh, you do?
Yes. I am guilty as charged.
Didn't you messaged me on Facebook, right?
Yes, I did. And I am guilty as charged and also a consumer of the Vanguard. I don't discriminate content, when it comes to, leftist, political, content.
Fucking babies.
Exactly. But, these two, it's like, man, I used to remember when I was young and dumb, it's like, I do fucked up things, man. You kind of talk out of line and it's like, you kind of, you talk very emotionally that it's like you kind of speed through something. And it's like, everything about their program is like, it's intelligent, but it's like it's really, really abrasively fast. Like even from everything from the music, it's like you just drank the most sugary fucking Mountain Dew slurry that you ever fucking tasted in your life, and it's like you fucking cannot control your fucking emotions. And it's like, dude, Marianne Williamson is not a threat to the military lobby. She is not a threat to the financial interests of the United States. Just stop it. It's like every 4 years, every 2 to 4 years, it's like you're channeling all this, grassroots energy for a noble purpose, I know, to the presidency, but you're basically just taking it to a corporate apparatus that controls a political party and all of a sudden it just grinded to just dust, to just bone dust, and it's just gone.
Well, this is what's so offensive to me about these people. Because really, look, yeah, man. I mean, these guys, they are young, and I do, in a way, almost like feel bad for them because they're just dumb as a box of rocks, these kids. But at the same time, I don't feel that they're honest. And you know, I mean, this is the first time we're really getting into this with them. I mean, mostly we have focused on Kyle and Crystal, sheepdogging people into this.
By the way,
only responded because they did that.
And you ever seen any sports pictures, like any, like, you know how you have like the two linemen like Dingle and Barry sat next to each other on the bench. You know, Crystal Ball and Marianne Williamson. It's like it's comical. You ever think about it?
And I think they're really misleading. I mean, Keaton did a great monologue on it that's up on the channel.
I wrote a Substack about it. The article, the video's basically, I basically read through the Substack article and embellished a little bit.
And that sums it up. And what he's describing, and I think he's right, makes me personally furious that they're taking advantage of people who trust them, man. I mean, when you have a platform like this, you have a responsibility to be honest. And I think that trying to pump up not only a doomed campaign, but a campaign that will probably not crack 5%, and to use that to try to build your subscribers. You know, at one point I didn't comment on it. But, you know, early on, they were talking about how channels are playing on the anger of their audience and giving them nowhere to go. I mean, talk about projection. I mean, that's exactly what all of these stations are doing. They're playing on
I think it's really
sheepdog them into this yet another doomed Democratic primary, and they all deflect to this. Well, it's this or nihilism. And if you have that, if your political vision is that narrow, you know what? You should quit. You should.
Yeah, it's very, Russell, it's very myopic. It's very myopic. And it's like, it's very shameful of them that they had to like tear up their allegiance with RBN. Because like when you see their content, yeah, there's like, it's tough to get through it because they don't really like talk, you know, convey their message always like clearly. They kind of drag on through their segments. I've been watching their content lately, but you know what? They're doing fine. At least they're being honest about you know about the hegemony of the United States. And
they were great on this afternoon. They did a whole thing.
Exactly. And when you see their pictures of them actually doing the work of actually helping out, giving out bottled water, diapers, you know.
And look, these guys see all that. Listen, these Vanguard boys, they see Rome doing the library thing. They know he's not sitting on his ass telling people.
Yeah, they don't bullshit.
Right. They're just lying.
They're just lying. They're just mean-spirited little liars. Look, what I said on here was true. I tweeted at them. I was trying to get a conversation going. I did not insult them. I showed you the tweet. They put together a panel on the pros and cons of Marianne Williamson a few weeks ago, and they said, we want diverse perspectives on this issue. And I know they know who we were because they took a few shots at us, right? So I tweeted back at them. I replied to that message, which I know for sure they read. I said, I'll come on. I promise I will be nice. Those were my exact words. And I would have been nice. Like, I'm a pro. I'm not going to go on there and, you know, curse up a storm and be an asshole on a panel. I would have gone on there.
That on our show.
We only do that on my show. I'm not going to go and do that on someone else's show. Never got back. Right? So they don't engage.
You get the you know,
they're not too cool for school. They're not much bigger than us. In terms of view count, they're really not any bigger than us now. So it's not like we're messaging Cenk Uygur trying to get on his show to clout chase. I'm sure most of his audience would hate our fucking guts. So it's not like it would be a coup for us to appear on their show. Right. I reached out and said, let's talk about it. They did not respond. I got a decent amount of likes on that reply to their tweet. No answer. I put this tweet out. This tweet got a ton of responses. I don't know what the numbers are on it now, but 11,000 views. A ton of responses. No answer from them. Instead, they wait a few days and then take a cheap shot about Russell being my grandfather, you know, do this little quick drive-by thing, when I was trying to, like, I'm actually, believe it or not, guys.
Never told you about your grandfather.
Exactly. Believe it or not, guys, I'm actually trying to help you because I guarantee you, everyone selling their audience this Marianne Williams shit is going to have a lot of explaining to do a year from now. A lot. You're going to be like Scar at the end of The Lion King, who falls and all the hyenas are there after him because they knew what he did to them. That's what you guys are going to be in a year.
You think losing 700 subscribers over your Aaron Mate bullshit is a lot? You wait.
Right. Kyle, same thing. Crystal, same thing.
Same thing.
Everyone trying to push this shit.
What you have to remember, the reason we're getting more live views than they are with, I don't know, like what, 25% of their subscribers. It's because a lot of people subscribe to them back when they were pretending, according to them, to have a politics different from the politics they really have. And they just haven't gotten around to unsubscribing. They just stopped watching them.
Right.
Yeah. I just wanted to just leave off on saying that, RBN, that you see the work they're doing and they're not bullshitting with these guys. I'm like, yeah, at least show us a fucking car refreshener, that you hang on the mirror, please. Like, I have not seen one iota of a fucking van. And I don't know what happened to it. It must have got impounded.
Did you give them money? Did you give them money for that project?
No, I didn't give him money for weed. He must have gotten high, and left it in the fucking, parking area that shouldn't have been and got impounded. I don't know.
See, I'm giving them more credit than you. I'm at least saying they bought some meme stocks and some crypto.
But they have enough time to grow up.
You're saying they just passed out in a Walmart or something.
Got to be honest.
I don't know.
Got to tell the truth. Got to tell the truth.
No,
don't be a mean little liar. That because it's just dishonest.
Yeah.
Look, to get serious for a minute in terms of the nihilism and this kind of thing, going forward with the show, and I just got back from India. Obviously, we didn't really have time to talk about future planning and things like that. But me and Keaton are going to sit down, and I really want, I think Keaton would agree, to look at things we want to support. Mm-hmm. And we'll have links, we'll have contacts, we'll do donation drives. Like, we're not nihilists. We're realistic. As veterans of 2 failed campaigns inside a rigged system, we have turned towards outside power and outside movement. So yes, look, it is a fair thing to say, okay, so what are you going to do about it? Well, we are going to do something about it. We are going to use our platform to promote things like that library, to promote things like Workers Strike Back, to send water to people in East Palestine. That's what we're going to use this platform for. It's not,
not vanity projects. Not vanity projects. Sorry to interrupt.
Exactly. Things that make a real difference in people's lives, and things that actually are premised on ideas that even if you fail, at least it makes sense. At least it has a chance of succeeding. Because when you look at any breakthrough legislation that's ever been passed, yeah, okay, sure, you have to pass it through the political system. All of those things came about through outside power and outside pressure. So to get involved in the political system without building that outside power, well, we've seen the result of that, haven't we? In the Squad. The Squad is as useless as an asshole right here. They are fucking useless. We took that route without having outside power to pressure those people. Once they get in office, they're just going to be co-opted by the same establishment we're trying to fight against.
People,
exactly.
and you have to understand.
So I just want to take this one chat here. Marcia, thanks for the chat. Outside movement is good, but that does not get people in office. Once again, they are not getting Marianne Williamson in office. Like, the idea, like, what if I were to say, hey, I'm running for president now, and I have every policy idea that Marianne has, plus I want peace talks in Ukraine. That makes me, in the eyes of the Vanguard boys, a superior candidate because I have all the policies they like from her, and I one-up her by saying I want peace in Ukraine. Does everybody then have an obligation to support my candidacy? Me, Keaton. Does everybody have then an obligation to support me? And whoever doesn't support me, can I then rightfully say, hey, you're a nihilist because you're not supporting my campaign? What the fuck are you doing? So you just want to sit on your ass because you won't support me. You don't want to do anything, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm this great candidate with these great policy ideas. I have
absurd.
zero chance to win, but you're a nihilist if you don't back me. That's the argument they're making.
You're a
That's the argument
nihilist
they're
if you don't subscribe to my channel on the premise.
Speaking of the
this is a
squad,
very important
that is a term. The squad, that is a term that was coined by Donald Trump, and that is in the Trump era, and that should be left behind with it, because that is done.
Absolutely.
It's like, yeah, they
Bennett
don't vote
Weiss,
together.
Russell's son, because Bennett Weiss is my dad. So Russell, say hi to your boy Bennett. Give us $49.99. See, now the Vanguard are going to rag on us. because my
Bennett,
dad gave me a donation.
what's going on? You never call.
You never call.
You never write.
The Vanguard guys are going to rag on me now because
sitting
my
there
dad
by
gave me a
myself,
donation.
lighting my
right?
own candles.
Well, I better get off the line because I'm keeping Russell up. It's
Thank
past his bedtime because this is grandpa.
Grandpa.
Seriously, I had to do 2 cups of coffee because of the jet lag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
They'll have you
this-
talking fast,
this
just like
is-
Zach.
My body doesn't know what fucking time it is.
By the way, I like their dynamic. It's like upper and downer.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Take care,
thanks,
guys.
Virtuoso. Good to hear from you again, as
Thank you,
always,
man.
man. Thank you.
Thanks for calling in.
All righty. All right. Should we do our last segment of the evening?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's get this one in the can. Tucker Carlson this week began airing segments of video footage he obtained from Speaker Kevin McCarthy about the January 6th riot. Now, we should take note at the outset that this footage that he played was released to him as a concession from party leadership to the Freedom Caucus members who initially withheld support for Kevin McCarthy's speaker bid. So this is a product of a certain forced to vote movement here, right? Carlson's segment involved quite a bit of editorializing that was no doubt meant to sanitize the event, playing footsie with, yes, to Virtuoso's super chat question earlier, the Fop the Seal theories and things like that, and emphasizing that most of the rally goers were non-violent. So before we play this, we're going to play what I think is the most important and went the most viral. We're going to play the most important segment of his piece here. But I do want to talk for a couple minutes just about, broadly speaking, this is not, I would not equate this with a Twitter file situation. Like, this was definitely a biased report. There was definitely some ass covering on the part of Tucker and Fox News, who are now under some fire for misrepresenting the way they felt about the Fop the Seal movements and things like that. So, yes, I would grant that. I would absolutely grant all of that. But as is the case with the Twitter files, the footage itself is authentic and I think does make certain points about the extent to which the state has gone to make examples of these hapless schmucks, these debtors, as the Washington Post put in their own paper, disproportionately poor, screwed over, alcoholic, right?
Bankrupt.
Some might say
failed
deplorables,
businesses.
right?
Right.
I don't view them that way, but they've been called that before, shall we say? Very unfair.
Very unfair.
So yeah, I mean, Russ, do you have any just overall takes on the piece before we play the footage that we're going to show of the Jacob Chansley stuff?
Yeah, look, I mean, Tucker was being very slippery with his language. He's on the one hand giving credibility to Stop the Veal, and then it's very bad what they do to those cows. And then on the other hand, he's phrasing it in a way that gives him plausible deniability. It's not for nothing that he's the #1 cable show host. He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy.
Right.
He's cagey. He's very cagey. At the same time, there's no denying what this footage reveals. You know, we knew from the beginning, and we're going to see that clip, that the cops let them in a lot of cases. So the fact that, and something he keeps hitting on that you can't deny either, is that the January 6th committee had access to this footage and they never told you about this.
Right. They decided not to show it. Exactly.
Which is one more thing that undermines credibility. These people will go on cable news and cry their eyes out and wring their hands about the fact that the public doesn't trust them. And then they make choices like this that cause the public not to trust them. The fault lies not in your stars. It's in you.
Right.
It's you. You people have caused this complete collapse of faith in elites and their institutions.
Right. This is the parallel version of the January 6th committee findings. That was primetime TV, all the libs with the popcorn emojis on Twitter, getting ready to sit down, cozy up with the Xanax and the white wine, and watch a curated rendition of January 6th.
Right.
The version curated by the Democratic committee. Right. So they put together their own spin on this. They put together their version. Now you're getting Fox News's version.
You're getting their spin.
Like, none of it is really honest. Like, none of it is completely honest. But what Tucker did is no more outrageous than what the January 6th committee did, because by choosing to exclude this footage, they weren't telling the whole story either.
And when I watch the liberals with their popcorn emojis, what they see themselves as, continuing in a tradition of American people fighting for the rights of citizens and defending the institutions of democracy. What I see is an old aristocratic tradition of shitting on poor white people, otherwise known as white trash, which has been a pastime of their wealthier, more aristocratic white people since we brought over indentured servants, right? I mean, this is just a new manifestation of that. And also, if you extend it out, look, it's no longer acceptable to pull this aristocratic class rank on people of color. These are the last people left in the country that they can sniff at and scapegoat, right? So they make the most of it when they get something like this. And that Washington Post article that you mentioned, hey, credit where credit is due. I was shocked that they did that article. Absolutely shocked. But did that change any liberal perspectives? Absolutely not. They pretended that article never happened.
All right. With that, let's take a look at the Jacob Chansley footage and sort of, section of this segment that Tucker put out. This was Monday's.
Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
We will not let them silence your voices.
After the rally, they walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, where organizers had secured a federal permit to hold a legal rally on the grounds of the Capitol.
I know that everyone...
All right, let me just pause it right there. Assuming that's true, which nobody has refuted that. Like, for all the whining
and they would if it wasn't true.
Right, for all the whining that Schumer has done about how he's very dangerous to let people watch this, and then, the CNN, the pearl clutching, and MSNBC. If it's true that they had a permit, and think of this for everyone who's a little uneasy that we're doing this segment, for all the lib-adjacent lefties in the audience, I mean, I know there are some.
We do get
Think
some,
of this.
yeah.
Why have you not
Especially tonight, we had some of the Vanguard audience drifting.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah. Why have you not heard over the past 2 years that they had a permit to protest on the Capitol grounds? You never heard that?
No.
No one in the media ever told you that.
The first time I heard that was watching that report.
Exactly. Their version of events was Trump held a rally a few blocks from the Capitol, pointed and said, "Capitol's that way, go and be strong." And it was just spontaneous, we're going to... Turns out they had a permit for the event on the Capitol grounds.
Here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Once at the Capitol building, things began to get chaotic. Capitol police officers fired tear gas into the crowd. A few at the front of the herd broke windows. Someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in.
They're gonna make that the story.
Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley. often referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman. QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley.
Now, I just want to stop this for a second to just interject this thought, and this will come up again. Prison psychiatrists, right? Not his defense lawyer, right? The prison psychiatrist diagnosed this guy with depression, anxiety, and transient schizophrenia. He's obviously a mentally ill guy. Just look at him. He's obviously a mentally ill guy, right? Being led around by the cops through the building, not attacking anyone, right? Not assaulting anyone, not out of control in there, being led through the building.
They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley.
Look at this. Look, he's just walking through that crowd.
One of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Shoot him. Like, if it
says the anti-fascist Lincoln Project Steve Schmidt, the liberal hero. Shoot him.
Who arguably opened the door to Donald Trump by promoting Sarah Palin.
Right. He ran John McCain's 2008 campaign. It was his idea to do what he called a game change. That was the name of the book. Oddly enough, co-written by John Heilman, who was featured last week. His idea was to promote Sarah Palin for vice president.
Well, and the fact that the shit libs have elevated him the way that they have just shows you how hollow their outrage really is.
Of course. Of course.
You burst into the United States.
Steve Schmidt, by the way, warmongering Republican, has virtually infinitely more blood on his hands than all of the January 6th rioters put together.
He was dressed like bin Laden. Would you have shot him?
Shoot him. Shoot him. It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley, and the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media coverage.
All right. So there you have it. Now, when you put together the pieces of this information, they had a permit to protest on the Capitol grounds, and the Capitol police officers did, as a matter of fact, open the doors and let them in. And if you don't trust me to tell you that, here's Morning Joe the day after January 6th telling you that.
Insurrectionists were black, they would have been shot in the face. And my God, if these insurrectionists were Muslim, they would have been sniped from the top of buildings.
By the way, Joe Scarborough...
all of a sudden, Joe is woke.
Right, all of a sudden he is woke. Right, he's a Gingrich Republican congressman from Florida. He supported Jeb Bush at the beginning of the 2016 primary and was pretty chummy with Donald Trump until he realized he was just too toxic for the MSNBC audience. But here we go.
Okay, I've got to do this one. The shaman is actually dressed like Marianne. Good one, Duncan.
Good one, Duncan.
That was such a good one, you didn't even have to give us money.
No, by the way, big crowd in here. Hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button if this is your first time here. I think we've earned a sub tonight. We're putting in the hours tonight.
We're
subscribe
working,
to the goddamn channel.
And I drank 2 cups of coffee, and been sitting here very patiently.
Don't make us insult you, right? Don't make us go all Zach on you and start insulting you guys. Just hit
Don't
the
make us go
subscribe button.
negative on the crowd.
Right, exactly.
As I always told my actors, don't go negative on the
Cannot
crowd.
go negative on the crowd. Absolutely. All right, here we go.
So I want to know from the Capitol Hill Police, what is it? Is it just white people? Or is it Donald Trump supporters? Why do you scream at people for walking across the street 3 blocks away from the Capitol? Why are you known as badasses around the Capitol? But then Trump supporters come in and you open the doors for them.
That edit, by the way, he
Supporters
dropped an
comment.
F-bomb on the air that morning. They took it out of the edited version. He said, you open the fucking doors for me.
Honestly,
Now-
I'm really surprised that this clip is findable.
Yeah, no, it's still on MSNBC. Yep. All right.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed because I have recently talked to somebody who's very invested in the January 6th narrative. Never heard anything about the cops letting.
No, this was MSNBC.
Like
January
libs
7th,
don't know anything
2021.
about that because they've erased it from the narrative.
Memory hold it. January 7th, 2021. This was the broadcast.
And you open the doors for them.
There you go.
You open the doors for them and let them breach the people's house.
All right, the sanctimony is not working. Joe DeSanctimonious there. Let them breach the people's house. This is why it's all so phony. It was never the people's house. It's not the people's house now. If it were the people's house, were you so upset that there were people in there? Right?
Yeah, right,
If it was the people's
right. They're
house, then why
people.
weren't they allowed in?
Aren't they people?
They breached the people's house. Who?
Are you going all David
People breached-
Icke? Are you suggesting
that's
they're
like a
lizards?
version. That's like a version of the Monty Python thing. They breached the people's house. Who? The people.
Yeah.
There's people in the people's house. What do they do? You know what I mean? So look, this is the whole thing. Look, I mean, you want to call this an attack on democracy? I don't think there was much at stake in terms of democracy. I'm sorry to say. The other thing is, given the fact that yes, they had a permit to protest on the grounds, they marched to the grounds, and yes, according to Joe Scarborough, not me, mainstream establishment, Joe Scarborough, the police let them into the building. What this also establishes pretty well is that this was not a premeditated insurrection.
Right.
It was a rally that got out of control because there were more people there than they expected, and the police let them in to the building. Now, this is not to say that no crimes were committed that day. I'm not saying that, right? I don't have an interest in whitewashing the crimes that were committed that day in terms of assaulting officers, damaging property, right? Blah, 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 right? So, yes, there were crimes committed that day. But the idea that this was premeditated as an act of terrorism, I'm sorry. I think this flies in the face of that. I always have thought it flies in the face of that, which is why all of these prison sentences, and I don't just say this, I mean, yes, I generally am an opponent of the carceral state more broadly. I think the sentencing is absolutely out of control in this country. But no, Jacob Chansley, for what he did there, should not be rotting in a jail cell for 4 years. Okay? He said in his prison interview that he was surprised he was charged precisely because the cops seemed very accommodating to what he was doing
right.
in there. Not only that, the January 6th defendants and their legal teams did not have were not given access to any of this footage.
Right.
If his lawyer played that in his trial, he could have very easily gotten off, because how can you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he had malicious intent when you see the police leading him around, walking through a crowd of 10 cops, nobody stops him? We're not saying they had to arrest him, because that's the straw man that the libs try. Well, they couldn't arrest him because where are they going to take him if they arrest him? You're telling me the police can't contain a person if they want to? They can't say this guy who he's obviously an unwell person. You don't think they could tell him, hey, you got to stay here. You got to stay put.
Right.
Sit down and stay still. Don't move. They couldn't have told him that.
Well,
they had to let him wander around. I mean, it's absurd. It's ridiculous.
Imagine, if you will, that you were at a rally whose aims you sympathize with. Okay, you were at a Black Lives Matter rally.
Yeah, and they
say
they torture police,
and the police opened the door and started leading you around. Would you think you were breaking the law? Would you think you could go to prison for 5 years when you're being led into the building by the police?
Right. Right. Or let's just say at a Black Lives Matter rally, you burned a police station to the ground, which happened at Black Lives Matter rallies.
That can't be tried as domestic terrorism.
Right. They didn't go after the Black Lives Matter protesters in that way.
Right.
Now, make no mistake about it. I've said this a million times on the show, but I want to say this now because I know we have a lot of new viewers. I'm not saying they should have, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying they should have gone after
We are
those
not.
protesters. What I'm saying is you need, if you're going to have this thing called
What we're
democracy
saying,
that all
you
these
set
libs
a
care about
dangerous
so much.
precedent. Sorry.
Well, not just a precedent. You have to have a thing called equal protection under the law.
Yes.
You can't use the Justice Department to settle political scores and make political examples of people. The judge even told Chansley in the fucking trial, the judge explained to him, I believe the exact quote was, "You were the epitome of the event," meaning they actually admitted openly that they were making an example of him, even though he didn't violently assault anybody. You were the one whose face was on all the newspapers, and so we have to lock you in a cage. I'm sorry, that's not justice. That's not democracy. That's fascism. That's fascism. And the guy presiding over that now is Joe Biden and his attorney general. So don't fucking tell me about the Marianne Williamson, the neo-fascist authoritarian threat. You got a transient schizophrenic rotting in prison after what we just saw. Now, do you have anything to add? Because I know there are a lot of people who aren't going to take Tucker's word on this because Tucker is not a voice of moral authority. And I don't blame you. I don't think he's a voice of moral authority either. You know who is a voice of moral authority to many on the left? Chris Hedges. And Chris Hedges wrote a wonderful article this week called Lynching the Deplorables. And I'm going to read some from that. Before I do, I know I just went on. Do you have anything to add to that before we go to Hedges?
No, you covered it.
All right, cool. All right, so let's just take a read. This is called Lynching the Deplorables by Chris Hedges. He gets into Jacob Chansley, who we just covered, right? Diagnosed in prison, transient schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, and anxiety. Chansley wasn't the only one. Guy Wesley Reffitt, who did not enter the Capitol building, nevertheless was sentenced after 3 hours of deliberations to 7 years and 3 months in prison on 5 charges, including 2 counts of civil disorder and 1 count each of obstruction of an official proceeding, entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds with a firearm, and obstruction of justice. In other words, a yahoo who brought a gun to the rally.
Yeah.
And was arrested and said, not only we're going to pinch you for the gun charge, but we're going to say you were here to obstruct an official proceeding. Even though it was clear they had no premeditated plans to actually enter the building, it was the police who, as Joe Scarborough said, opened the fucking doors for him, right? His obstruction of justice charge came from threatening his 2 teenage children to prevent them from reporting him to law enforcement. Daniel Ray Caldwell, a Marine Corps veteran who sprayed a chemical irritant at a group of officers outside the Capitol and entered through the Senate wing doors, where he remained inside for approximately 2 minutes, was sentenced to more than 5 years in prison. Again, we're just talking about insanely long sentences here. Insanely long sentences here. Yeah, Russell, if you got to step away for a second. Yeah, you can go ahead. I'm just reading. This is the boring part of the show, everybody. This is the reading part of the show. Here we go. Ryan Nichols, a Marine Corps veteran. This is the one I want to focus on. Ryan Nichols, a Marine Corps veteran, is living under house arrest in Texas after nearly 2 years in pre-trial detention, much of it in solitary confinement in Washington, D.C. and Virginia jails. He faces 5 felony and 3 misdemeanor charges. Prosecutors say Nichols assaulted officers and obstructed an official proceeding. He has been ordered to, quote, stay away from Washington, D.C., except for business related to his case, according to court documents. He has had to submit to, quote, location monitoring technology and is denied access to the internet and his phone except to perform functions related to his case. He cannot have contact with anyone involved in the January 6th events, including co-defendants. Nichols must remain in his home 24 hours a day except for medical and court appointments. He is permitted to attend Sunday church services at a Baptist church in Longview, Texas. He is facing 20 years in prison. He is scheduled to go to trial on March 27th. I spoke with Bonnie Nichols, Ryan's wife, by phone from their home in Longview, Texas. Ryan was arrested on January 18th, 2020. I'm assuming that was 2021. A little typo there. The FBI surrounded their house at 5:30 a.m. in armored vehicles. They unscrewed the bulbs from floodlights and cut the wires to the couple's security cameras before kicking in the front door. The couple and their 2 children, then aged 4 and 6, were at Bonnie's parents' house during the raid. The FBI confiscated their weapons, electronics, and documents, including Social Security cards. We wanted to cooperate, she said. We didn't know anything was wrong. They asked Ryan to come in for questioning. Ryan went and turned himself in. They arrested him, and I didn't see him again for a year and a half. Okay? Ryan, who had no criminal record, ran a nonprofit called Rescue the Universe, where he carried out search and rescue operations after natural disasters. He was denied bail. He was sent to a holding facility in Grady County, Oklahoma for 2 months before being flown to Washington, D.C., where he was met by some 24 U.S. Marshals. His feet were shackled. His arms were shackled in a chain around his waist. He was placed in a long-term solitary confinement and denied video calls or visitation from his family, including his children. He was denied access to his trial documents for nearly a year and prohibited from attending religious services in the jail. Solitary confinement, no contact with family, even by video conference, denied religious services. Okay, Ryan, whose most serious offense appears to be incendiary rhetoric for calling for a, quote, second American Revolution, spent nearly 22 months in solitary confinement. Depressed, struggling to cope with the physical and psychological strain of prolonged isolation, he was eventually placed on suicide watch. He was strapped to a bench in a room where a light was never turned off. Guards would periodically shout through a window, "Do you feel like killing yourself?" Those on suicide watch who said yes remained strapped to the bench. Those who said no were sent back to their cells. Ryan was often prohibited from having nail clippers. The guards told him he could chew his toenails down or getting a haircut unless he agreed to be schmaxinated for COVID-19. When Ryan appeared before Judge Thomas Hogan, who finally released him on November 23rd, 2022, he told Ryan, with his long unkempt hair and fingernails, that he looked like Tom Hanks in the film Castaway. Going to keep going here. I know this is long, but I think this is worth reading. Ryan deals with insomnia, Bonnie said of her husband. He deals with extreme anxiety, depression, and paranoia. Now he's home on house arrest, awaiting sentencing March 27th. He will not even go outside of his backyard because he's scared if he goes outside, they're going to take him back to jail. He has liver issues from the food that he ate because they fed him bologna sandwiches and trash while he was in D.C. He's having a lot of medical issues. He also has a lower testosterone than a 60-year-old man because he wasn't able to have any sunlight. His vitamin D levels are low. The list goes on and on. The man does not sleep at night. He has nightmares. He whimpers at night in his sleep because he has dreams that he's back in D.C. I mean, he's a mess. This is the result of what has happened to him. He has vision loss. He doesn't see as good as he used to. The family's savings are gone. She and Ryan are heavily in debt. As he writes, she set up a fundraising page here. Bottom line is, this is not the way an anti-fascist government treats human beings.
Well, it's
no matter
cruel and
what they did, I
unusual
would
punishment.
argue. Yeah. What's that?
It's cruel and unusual punishment. And I want to say, I'm assuming, I could be wrong, I'm assuming that most of our viewers have not been in jail. I've never been to prison, but I've been in jail a lot. I'm a little rambunctious that way. That will drive you crazy being in there for 3 days. 3 days. Most people will start to lose it. So the idea of being locked up like that with the lights on 24 hours a day for that length of time, no one should be treated like that if we're really living in a democratic society with humanist values. Nobody. We have a constitutional prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. And I would argue that our prisons in general are cruel and unusual punishment. But right. This is going the extra mile, what they did to this person. And if you're for that, and if you talk to a lot of libs, what they're going to say, good. He should get worse. Right. He should get worse. That's too good for him. Okay,
at that point, you're not even a lib.
you're a fucking fascist.
Of course.
You're a fucking you're a rainbow fascist. Don't tell me that the choices are between fascism and democracy. The choices are between Christian fundamentalist fascism and rainbow fascism.
Yep, 100%. 100%. The guy's crime was, as Hedges just said there, assaulting an officer and incendiary rhetoric calling for a second American Revolution. Now, I just want to say one other thing, because Russell has experience in jail. I do not. But I have experience at protests that have gotten rowdy. I hung out at Occupy Wall Street quite a bit when it was going on in Lower Manhattan in the fall of 2011. There were skirmishes with the cops, not every day. I wouldn't even say often, but, you know, they happen from time to time. It was not a rare event. You had people there. We would get rowdy. We'd do a march. We'd do a rally. Cops would come. You know, you had a lot of radicals there. Scream at the cops, turn into, you know, going shitting on the police car. The police drag you off. You resist. You know, you try to get back on. Like skirmishes with the cops.
Right.
There's no doubt. If the police want to book you and charge you with assaulting an officer for that skirmish, they can absolutely do it.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so the idea...
That's something that people who have never been arrested or never been to jail...
Right, they don't know how easy it is.
They don't really understand. All of this stuff that you see on TV of the Miranda warnings...
yeah, no.
Listen.
The cops are basically Yoel Roth. They can get you for anything if they want.
Yeah, they're going to do whatever they want. And if you claim I wasn't read my Miranda warnings, you know what they're going to say? Yeah. Yes, we did.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, you try. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
You're going to take it to the FBI? Think the FBI is going to investigate that? How would you even prove it, right?
Right.
The first time I got arrested, I was 16. They put the handcuffs on 2 sizes too tight as a way to fuck with me, man. What are you going to do about it? By the time, and then because I wised off to them, I thought I was living in America. I was a smart ass, 16-year-old kid who just broke into a corporation building for a fucking typewriter to write my novel on it. You know, very Genet. That's
where Zach gets his attitude from.
That's where he got it from. That's where he got it from. That Jewy fuck. So, I literally said this to a cop, which was so, I mean, you know, so dumb. I was so young. I said to him, well, when you walk up to me and, you know, he smashed my head into the hood of the cop car. And I said, you sully the badge that you wear. Oh, like I look back on that now, like what did I think was going to happen? So for saying that,
he's going to start crying.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like I was going to give him some insight.
Yeah.
I was going to break. He was a little tear was going to come down his cheek. He was going to realize how far he had fallen from his idealistic dreams when he was at the academy.
Right.
So, you know, that they got back, they tortured me for that. You know, they put the handcuffs on 2 sizes too tight, and they're supposed to take the cuffs off when they put you in the cell. And they didn't take the cuffs off. They just left me like that for hours. By the time they took it off, I had these deep grooves in both wrists. People who've never been arrested, they've never been to jail, they don't realize how the system really works and how arbitrary it is. I mean, when I was in the first time, man, they withheld toilet paper from people who pissed them off so that they couldn't wipe their asses when they shit. This was the most revealing thing to me. It was the last time that I got arrested. And the cops literally said to everyone in the cell, because people had been smoking, they'd managed to sneak in some cigarettes. And you move to progressively closer cells to the judge. You start in a big pen of like 30 people, and then you're with 15 people, and then you're with 5 people, and finally you see the judge. So they're moving us from the main pen to the next pen. And the cop announced, okay, so I know that people were smoking in this cell. Now, if you smoke in the next cell, you're going to be in here for a month. And I know what you're thinking. They can't do that. That's illegal. Well, you know how the cops lie? We can do the same thing. We're just going to lose your file behind a filing cabinet and not find it for a month. That's reality. That's how the system works. And I think there's a big dividing line between people who have seen that and people who haven't seen that. Once you've seen that, you understand something about how the system works that a lot of people don't. You know, they what was he saying, Goodfellas? Once I had seen that, how could I go to class and believe in all this good government bullshit?
Right.
Right?
Exactly,
That's what it's like. Once you get arrested, you can't believe in this stuff anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, this is, you know, a long way of saying, like, look, they can get you if they want to get you. So when these
Sure.
rallies
Yep.
get
And you have
rowdy,
very little power.
right? When a Black Lives Matter march gets rowdy and a car lights on fire, right? Or a police precinct, you know, gets lit up, or an Occupy Wall Street, you know, whatever chant gets a little out of control and some yahoos, you know, act up, right? When that happens, it is very easy for the cops to ruin your life if they want to.
If they want to, right?
And it doesn't happen all the time, because if it did happen all the time, no one would ever march or protest or anything. It happened here to such an outrageous extent where you had the government telling not the people involved, but anyone who knew anyone involved, hey, if you know someone who was at this Capitol riot and they post on social media, send that information to the FBI so that we can sniff them out. I'm sorry. This is not equal enforcement of the law. This is not equal protection under the law. This is not democracy in action. The people who are cheering this on, which is all the dumbass MSNBC viewers who like to clutch their pearls about democracy under assault from Donald Trump, and they don't give a rat's ass about democracy.
No.
They never have.
No.
This is, as one of our viewers here posted a couple hours ago, it's red fash, blue fash. That's all it is.
There was one line Hedges had right at the close of his first paragraph that I actually copied, because to me, this is the heart of the matter. Once rights become privileges, none of us are safe. That's it. That's the heart of it. Okay, today they're using these tactics on people whose politics you don't like. Listen, unless you got your head up your ass and you think Marianne's going to be, burning sage in the Oval Office come 2025, you know that there's going to be a change in power, and it is almost definitely going to be Republicans in charge. And in my opinion, the Republican in charge is going to be Ron DeSantis, who is not a lazy clown like Donald Trump, who actually has the discipline, the legal mind, and the knowledge of how the system works to actually enact policy in a meaningful, significant way that really changes the country in more than a superficial sense. Look at the precedent you have set here. Now, what are you going to say when they use this on Black Lives Matter protesters? What are you going to say when they use this on people who are protesting for causes that you agree with? What are you going to say when they lock up a bunch of climate protesters as domestic terrorists? You've set this dangerous precedent in motion, as if the left or look, man, don't get me on the semantics in the chat, all right? You know
what passes for left in mainstream discourse? The center left, the Democrats. Yeah.
The center right.
Right, we don't have 10 minutes to explain this every single time.
Every time this comes up. Historically, they usually are not able to maintain power. You know, our friend of the show, Ellen, posted a really interesting podcast I started to listen to. It was a African-American professor challenging the 1619 Project. And part of the basis of his challenge to it was, he said, when you politicize history, in the end, that always favors the right wing. Once you open that door, you've opened the door for a conservative redefining of history, and they're usually going to win the public.
Right,
over
they're
to
usually
their
the ones
version.
willing to take it to the extreme.
Right.
I mean, look, case in point here. Donald
That's
Trump.
what's so dangerous about opening this door.
Look, Trump, during the George Floyd protests, went up on stage, some event. I mean, he said this a couple different times, and started musing about handing down 10-year prison sentences to whoever defaced a statue.
Right. I remember.
You draw a
that.
dick and balls on Thomas Jefferson's horse, 10 years in jail. Right? Now, he never actually went through with that because it seemed kind of ridiculous. You start locking up diagnosed schizophrenics for 5 years, keeping them in solitary confinement for a year and a half pre-trial, right? All of a sudden, that idea that Trump floated, it's still ridiculous, but it's less ridiculous by comparison to what you've already done.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, this I mentioned to you, and we're going to cover this on the Film Club. I was on the way back from India, appropriately enough. I was watching Gandhi on the plane, and something that really struck me was the moral clarity that the leaders of these earlier movements had. People like Gandhi, people like MLK, people like Malcolm X. I'm not even simply talking about people who took a passive resistance stance. There was a depth of philosophical inquiry and philosophical argument that we just do not have any leadership representing that today. Or you could argue that the press keeps them from being elevated, that there are people like that out there. They're just not platformed by our media complex. I mean, they used to put Malcolm X on TV.
Right.
On Meet the Press. You would see Malcolm X. They would never do that today. But you look at a moral figure like Gandhi, who spent decades of his life building a movement to get the British out of India. And once the Muslims and Hindus started getting violent, he went on a hunger strike and disbanded his own movement that he had given his life to. Show me somebody with that kind of moral vision, that kind of moral commitment, that kind of moral clarity. So many of the people today who are passing for leaders are just grifters. I mean, these are people who make money off consulting, off giving speeches. They're and the rhetoric that they have. To look at someone like Gandhi, and this is why I want to cover the movie, so I don't want to get too into it, but to look at someone like that who's saying towards the end of all this, when it's clear that the British are going to have to leave, to say we've been down a long road with the British, we want to part as friends. Oh, I mean, what moral clarity of someone to think like that and to not say, well, we really want to burn all of their storehouses before they go, right? I mean, that's what you would hear today. That's what you would hear. Hey, revenge. And he kept making that point that he wanted justice, not revenge, right? And we're having such a different conversation today, and we just don't. And again, I'm not saying that, Malcolm X, I admire just as much, actually. And he took a very different tack, but he wasn't a grifter. He was another one who had the courage of his convictions. And we're very much lacking in that. And I think that also needs to be part of the conversation. I talked a little bit earlier about how, no, we don't want to succumb to nihilism. We do want to support worthwhile causes. And part of that conversation does have to be, we need a better class of leadership. We need better leaders. We need leaders with the courage of their convictions. And I'm sorry, that's not Bernie Sanders.
All right, let me get this chat here. This is not a super chat, but this is something that I want to talk about here. We're really crying about Q Shaman not having fun in jail. No, we're not crying about it, and it has nothing to do with whether we're crying about it or not. This is another thing that the libs love to say. One of my favorite lines of theirs is, "I'm not shedding a tear for X." Right? Something bad happens to a person they don't like. They say, "Well, I'm not shedding a tear for them." It's not about whether you shed a tear for them. It's not about how you feel emotionally about it. It's about asking yourself the political, social, and philosophical question: is this cruel and unusual punishment? Is this the act? Is locking a diagnosed mentally ill man in a cage for 5 years for wandering around the inside of the Capitol building with face paint on, escorted by police the entire time, is that justice? Is that democracy at work? I don't give a flying fuck whether you cry about it or not. That's not the point. That's not the point.
And what kind of capital L liberals support something like that?
Exactly.
I thought we're supposed to be the compassionate ones who want to help people with mental illness.
Well, that's
and
the other thing.
you see that as legally permissible to put a mentally ill person in those conditions. As I said earlier, listen, I'm gonna quote Charles Manson when he was having his very famous interview with Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo tried to pull this macho thing with him about how he could handle jail. And Manson, with his crazy eyes, said something that I think is probably true of Geraldo. Yeah, you spend 3 days in there, you're going to be banging your head off the walls. Okay, that is true of the average person. If you've never been in a jail cell, you cannot imagine what's involved in that. Because I've had that experience. Prison reform and criminal justice reform is an issue I'm particularly passionate about. I have such sympathy and, just absolute sadness around what's been done to so many people, not just these people, so many people who have been convicted on bullshit drug charges, people who are in the wrong place at the wrong time. People who, because of their race wind up in that position. It's a horrible thing. And if you've been in jail, which, look, I'm not trying to say, oh man, I've been in the big house. I haven't. That's my point. Just a little taste of it. Right. I can imagine what it would be like to be in there for years. Dude, the last time I got arrested, I had, I think I was reading The Stand. It was like a big book. I'm pretty sure it was The Stand. And the guy I was in there with, man, he asked me for the book. And, your first instinct is like, and I come from the street, is like, yeah, well, don't let anyone fuck with you. So my first instinct was like, nah, man, I'm not giving you my book. Right. And he goes, listen, I'm on probation, man. I'm going away. I'm going away for a long time. And I was like, all right, I gave him the book. It's just something that most people, particularly most libs, have no experience of. So it's very easy for them to be cavalier about something like that because they just can't even imagine what that's about.
And cavalier about the sentencing. I mean, we all get one life, folks. You have a 70-year lifespan on average, 75-year lifespan on average. 8 years in a cage is a long time. That's time you're not getting back, man.
Well, Frank Herbert said something I always think of with that. It's in the Dune series. He says, rob a man of his life or rob a man of 10 years of his life. The question is only of degree.
Of course, right. Because it's time you can never make back.
Can never get that back.
A 10-year prison sentence means that on average, 1 out of every 8 days you spent on Earth was in a cage. I mean, that's an extreme sentence. And we just hand out these sentences. Well, assaulting an officer, 5 years, spraying a guy in the face, 4 years. Like, what are you fucking kidding? Like, this is just out of control. It's out of control across the board, right? I'm not saying it's especially out of control in this case, but when you look at the way the Justice Department has exercised restraint in prior cases versus what they are doing to these people by the judge's own admission. He tells the guy, you were the face of this thing. Come on, man.
Right.
That's not justice. I'm sorry.
Right. Well,
that's
they scapegoated
and you're a
him.
fucking fascist pig if you try and pass it off as that. That's all you are. I have no patience for it.
Right. They scapegoated this one mentally ill guy as, the face of what was essentially, look, why was this such a big deal? It was a threat to the establishment. I mean, it's all of a piece. It's the same reason they want to censor the internet. It's the same reason that they
just
line
want
up.
to otherize certain people.
They want to otherize anyone who challenges institutional power because they're scared. They can feel their power slipping away. And with what they have done over the last several decades, they are terrified of facing justice. That is what it comes down to. They're picturing Dark Knight Rises with Scarecrow trying them before a people's tribunal, and that keeps them up at night.
Yes,
You know, it's what
it
I
keeps them
forget.
up at night.
I
More
forget the
than
name of
Bernie
the-
Sanders winning the Nevada caucuses. I hate to tell you. I'm sorry to say.
Yes, and it looks and the reason for that is if you had to make a bet that People's Tribunal is a lot more likely to come out of the MAGA movement than it is to come out of the Sanders movement. That's why they give a shit about that.
And it is to come out of the Bad Faith podcast.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Let's take some super chats before we turn off the lights here. You guys are a great crowd. Thank you very much. I know we haven't taken a super chat in a while because this has been a hot show. So I hope we didn't keep you guys waiting too long. Wow. Okay. A lot here. Red Rebel Dragon. Russell, no one has sent you that tweet. This was not a super chat, but I guess you flagged this.
Yeah, I flagged it. Yeah. Okay. So look, as bad as Keaton is at Twitter, although he's getting better, I have no Twitter game, so I didn't see that. But I will take a look at it. Life in Tasmania is chill. All right, I got to get over there sometime.
Thanks, Red Rebel. Jose Alvarado, recovering MSNBC addict here. You guys are so much better than MSM. Well, Russell's a recovering MSNBC addict as well.
I've written articles about it back when we used to do that kind of thing.
Exactly. Thank you, Jose. Appreciate it. Sinead, sorry. Caught that there. My favorite new podcast, Sharp, Witty, and On Point. Thank you. Well, thank you, Sinead. Appreciate it.
Thank
By
you
the way,
very
for those
much.
of you guys who like to listen to the shows in the car stuff, we are on every major podcast player as well as YouTube, Rumble. Actually, we're not on Rockfin tonight. I couldn't get that working for some reason. Rockfin's a little spotty every once in a while. Like it doesn't always. Thing doesn't fucking thing sucks.
Fucking sucks.
Fucking thing sucks. Superb teardown of Dumb and Dumber. Thank you. Appreciate it. They're saying their channel single-handedly helps symbolize why there is no real left now. I agree with that. I mean, they're not the culprit, but it symbolizes what the problem is. Yes, of course. There's no possible coalition with people that dishonest. Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, and some of their people came over here to troll, but it shows you how little loyalty they inspire, that nobody was committed enough to super chat a trolling comment in their defense.
Yeah, no one took the kind of hit that Colin took. So thank you, Colin, if you're still hanging out here. Carlos Magus. This man was tortured and his human, civil, and constitutional rights were ignored. Yes, I agree.
Carlos,
thank you.
I mean, with that name, you should be giving us more than $5 because I'm sure you're able to turn shit into gold.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Unbelievable, says Tusker, for $5. That was I think that was when I was reading the Hedges stuff. Thank you again, Tusker. Oh, Carlos, well, look at this.
She's referencing the song,
he
isn't
did,
she?
He did end us give us more money.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, right. He did give us more money. See, you just you said Carlos could have given us more. He turned out he did. Thank you, Carlos. Pardon me.
That whenever any
Go ahead, Russell,
form
you
of
read.
government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. Text from the Declaration of Independence. What are you trying to get us thrown in Gitmo?
Extremist, extreme MAGA.
We distance
fascist,
ourselves from the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah,
it's too
Russian.
radical.
Russian. That sounds like Russian to me.
Yeah. Did Putin write that?
Did Putin write the Declaration?
Did Putin get in a time machine, go back, insert that into the Declaration of Independence, and pop back here in time to start a war?
Tusker, absolutely, Russell. Agreeing with you there. Thank you, Tusker. Okay, Steve, I got who. Zach, RFK has the kind of integrity. Oh, now we're gonna get the RFK stands coming in here. Oh, we can't. We only have enough energy to handle one bizarre pet campaign at a time. Zach, thank you. Though.
Okay, I want to point something out. I want to give props to my grandson here because actually the boys got their stream from today pulled down, which I was watching some of to prepare for this segment. I was watching their Marianne section, which was actually dumber than anything we played tonight. But the reason that never happens to us is Keaton, because I'm the one who's like, hey, let's live stream the whole Dave Chappelle special and comment on it. And, Keaton is wise enough to
they got a copyright
put
block
a check
from the
on
View.
my worst instincts.
They got a copyright block from the View. Like tomorrow on the film club, we're talking about the Chris Rock special. we can't play Netflix. The RBN guys had a stream pulled from that. Like, Netflix is a real bitch. We had a stream pulled off of Facebook once for showing Chappelle on Netflix. Yeah. Virtuoso, thank you, my friend. U.S. politics isn't about helping people. It's about seeing our political enemies suffer. No, 100%. 100%. It's about that emotional high of either owning the libs or owning the MAGA, right?
Well, that's why poor people don't bother to engage with it, because
Right,
they
they
can't
suffer
afford
enough.
that kind of frivolity. They
Well,
don't have
also
time
suffer
for
enough,
that.
you know, in their real life. They don't need online enemies giving them more heartache than they've already got. All right, I think that's all of our super chats. I want to play our Patreon scroll one more time. If you can join us at patreon.com, you get bonus content and call-in access to these shows. That's how Virtuoso called in. He's a patron. Thank you, Virtuoso. That's how Taya called in. Taya's a patron as well. It really helps us come on here and spend as much time as we can on here. Patreon.com/DueDissidence. We also have a Substack, which you can join as a paid member or as a free member. We urge you to please join us on Substack for free, even if you can't become a paid member. And please subscribe to this YouTube channel and our alternative networks too. Rockfin, Rumble, all that stuff. Really good. Helps you stay in touch with us all. Please, like I said, like this channel. Like this stream and subscribe to this channel. Zach is hitting us up with $5 right here at the end, so I will get this. He'll come around on RFK Jr. I don't mean no disrespect to the guy. I'm just saying he's not going to be president. So
No. Personally, I'm laughing at this idea that everyone's trying to get us deplatformed.
Oh well, there's that too.
That was the funny for me. Like, yeah, let's talk about RFK's theories about the vaccination and all that. Yeah.
I wasn't laughing at that. I was joking that, like, now everybody's going to be chatting at us with their pet candidate.
Yeah, right.
Go, wait, what about RFK Jr., right? We're going to have someone kind of, Dennis Kucinich is going to run again.
I was just going to say, Kucinich is looking good this year.
He's looking good this year. Everybody's going to be coming out of the woodwork. Right. Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to diss him or anything. I'm just like, he's not going to be president. So everybody needs to calm down with the candidate
a super
pitches.
Chat, but thank you. Cricket.
Thank you, Cricket. Cricket's a patron, so every chat is a super chat.
We have some
from our
new
patrons.
guests on the bookshelf. If you look up above my shoulder there, that's Gandhi.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, folks, what we might do, I'm going back and forth on whether or not to do this, because YouTube has memberships, right? You could join as a YouTube member, which is like a recurring donation to the show, and the idea is you're supposed to post like bonus content for the members. The only thing is, the whole point of our bonus content is we create bonus content for stuff that we don't want to put on YouTube because we don't want to get pulled off YouTube.
Yeah.
So I might create members as a way to just like support us as a way of goodwill, but there's not gonna be no bonus content involved with that. The bonus content, the whole point of the bonus content is it's got to go on Patreon and Substack so that it's uncensored. But we might do that. Yeah. But anyway, that's where we are on that, in case anyone was wondering, because I know they just added the membership feature to the YouTube where like people can sign up to just like donate as a recurring donation. But if we do that, just so you know, you'll be able to do it. Your prize for doing that is a thank you. That's your prize.
Yeah. We are going to create new tiers on the Patreon, but clearly we're going to have some gifts for that. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Maybe you all could suggest to us what you would want.
Yeah. Perhaps.
Maybe we'll send Keaton to your house to do a singing telegram.
Yeah,
that
perhaps,
kind of thing.
Sex
I'll come
from Kansas City, circa 1999 or so. Something like that.
Yeah. We'll do our Pornhub thing with the Shank mask and the Anna mask on.
Yeah, exactly.
Virtuoso, it's funny you say that. So I'm gonna put it. Russell, could you end the show on a Bollywood dance number, please? All right. So I took a Bollywood dance class while I was there, and there is video, and that will be in my video.
Oh,
from
wow,
India.
interesting.
I did take a Bollywood dance class, and yeah, it's all filmed. It's all
interesting.
I can't deny it.
All right, cool. Well, that's something to look forward to. All right, everybody. Well, you guys were a wonderful crowd. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a great time with you all. Big crowd, active chat as always. Best chat on YouTube, I think. Nobody chats like you guys. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the one thing I'm going to miss, knock on wood, if and when the channel grows and the chat becomes so fast where like it's hard to actually interact, because some of these chats just fly by, you know.
Yes.
So, you know,
when you have like a couple thousand people in a chat.
Exactly. Yeah. The
Well,
great playwright,
but, you know,
John
we
Patrick
get to
Shanley
that
says
point.
his fondest memories as a theater writer were doing the small plays in the small houses, because then you knew everybody. You got to really get feedback from the audience every night. Whereas, you know, you could do a play for Broadway, 1,500 tourists file in, 1,500 tourists file out. It's like punching a clock. You do this real small shows, you get that intimacy, you get that real feedback, and it's great. So yeah, no, the chat is awesome. Thank you.
But I mean, at that point, we'll get an intern.
Yeah, at that point, we'll have to get an intern to keep track of the.
Well, we'll have to get somebody who actually knows how to use the technology.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much. Great show. Thank you for joining us for this. Subscribe to the channel, Patreon, Substack. Subscribe to the audio podcast if you like listening in the car. Thanks very much, everybody. Welcome home, Grandpa. And we will see you all. Well, we'll be back tomorrow for the film club.
I got a date with a box of prunes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, date with a box of prunes. We will see you guys here tomorrow for the film club at 9 p.m. That'll be a pre-recorded episode on the new Chris Rock special. But we'll be back here live Sunday. Oh, yeah, I got to announce this. Okay, so my wife is now working in Albany. It's 90 miles away. She's been working her ass off, driving 3 hours a day. Don't get to spend much time together anymore. And so we are watching the Oscars together with some friends on Oscar night. Family man that I am, I cannot say no to that. She's been working her ass off, and we need some family time, which means we're still doing the show Sunday, but we're going to do it early. We're going to do it at 4 p.m. Eastern time, a 4 p.m. matinee, so I can have some rosé and watch the red carpet with the family when it comes on. Very dissident of me, I know, but I'm a family man first. What could I say? So 4 p.m. Sunday, not 7 p.m. 9 p.m. tomorrow for the film club, 4 o'clock Sunday. Tune in, be there, subscribe so you get the alerts, ring that bell, all that stuff. Russell, you have a final courage or a good night and good luck before we say goodbye?
I mean, one final namaste for the road. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you all so much.
Please clap.